Bonsoir tout le monde. Good evening, everyone. We'll get this meeting started. All members of council are present. I'll ask everyone to please stand for the prayer and the national anthem. Attendu que le Canada est fondé sur des principes qui reconnaissent la suprématie de Dieu et la primauté du droit, prenons un moment de réflexion personnelle. Whereas Canada is founded upon principles that recognize the supremacy of God and the rule of law, let us take a moment of personal reflection. Merci tout le monde. Thank you, everyone. Item 4, additions, deletions, or amendments. We have a few additions. Item under 18B, Conseiller Brisson for the blood clinic. Under item 18C, Councillor Associate for Irish Tea event. Item D, under Councillor Associate for the museum cladding. Do we have anything else to add, other members of council? No? I need a mover and a seconder. Moved by Councillor Tanoski, seconded by Conseiller Brisson. So motion to approve the agenda as amended. All those in favor? All those opposed? Carried. Item 6, disclosure of pecuniary interest. Seeing none, move on to item 7, adoption of minutes. Regular council minutes of February 18th, 2020. Motion to approve the following minutes as presented. Need a mover and a seconder. Moved by Councillor Lorraine, seconded by Conseiller Associé. Questions? All those in favor? All opposed? Carried. Item 8, presentation, Russell Township Sports Complex presented by Community for Sports and Cultural Infrastructure Steering Committee. Mr. Anthony?
Yes, Your Worship.
Please come up to the lectern, and we look forward to the presentation.
Thank you. Your Worship and members of the council, we have a short presentation and then a few questions afterwards. And with me today is Phil Ryan and Teresa Weaver. Our other two members could not be here. I apologize. The first purpose is to inform the council of the creation of the Community for Sports Infrastructure and Culture. It's a steering committee that we created about a month and a half ago. And our purpose is to offer assistance to Russell Township in the fundraising efforts for sports and cultural infrastructure. We are also here to offer assistance to Russell Township to consult with community engagement, partnerships for sports and cultural infrastructure. And finally, we're looking for the council's endorsement, advice, and guidelines and engagement. Our steering committee is comprised of myself, Phil Ryan, Teresa Weaver, Mark Kelly, and Corinne Boucher. And Corinne and Mark send their regrets they could not be here today. They're out of town. We're looking for the addition of 2 additional members to be on that steering committee. One is a member of council, if you guys so agree, and the second one would be somebody from the recreational department. Celine or somebody like that. The full committee, which is not yet formed, would consist of people, the movers and shakers, if you will, of the community. Our council members, the member of parliament, the member of provincial parliament, the United Counties, developers, businesses, arts, sports clubs, service clubs, philanthropists, seniors, community clubs, organizations, schools, chamber of commerce, basically anybody that it takes in order to get this project done, and whatever that may be. Our mandate, as we sat down and discussed it, as we see it, is to encourage, lead, assist, coordinate, support, and promote all individuals, groups, and businesses in the fundraising and awareness efforts for the sports and cultural infrastructure. Mr. Laurent and I have always been on opposite sides on whether a pool or an arena come first. We've decided that sports and cultural infrastructure refers to whatever you decide. Because I know you have a lot of decisions depending on the grants and what happens and with your consultant. Whatever you decide to accept and construct, that's what we're going to support. And finally, the next steps is to have a full information session with the full committee, as I articulated earlier, to launch the fundraising. We're starting with the ABBA story, which is May 30th, where we're having a casino night or a Monte Carlo, charcuterie boards, and bringing the ABBA story in as well, along with the DJ or video jockey. And finally, to seek your guys' endorsement, your advice, and engagement. Any questions?
Thank you very much, Mr. Anthony. Questions, members of council? Conseiller Laurent?
Mr. Anthony, what is ABBA boards or ABBA?
ABBA's, we're bringing in, we've hired a band. On May 30th, we're having this band that does ABBA music, dresses up like ABBA, and they're called ABBA Story. They're out of Toronto.
Okay, I didn't realize it was a band. I thought it was just, I thought you were making reference to, I mean, I know ABBA, I mean, that's not, I know the band. I just thought it was an acronym for something when you said ABBA Story.
Perfect.
Make it clear.
D'autres questions? Councillor Kanowski?
Thank you for the presentation. I had a couple of questions. So, when we're talking about infrastructure as it relates to cultural and sports cultural infrastructure, how do we go about dealing with possible kind of interconnectivity with, say, the libraries or other cultural institutions that already exist, that have infrastructure there? Have you guys talked about that at all? Or?
What we've talked about mainly is the master recreational plan and what you're looking at through the Colliers report, that
Okay.
project, and that's what we're looking at supporting. But what we've also discussed, and we're all very, very much on board, is whatever we build or whatever we assist to fundraise with, partner with, whatever we're doing, bring the entire community together. We're excited about that opportunity to bring in, so we have one hockey team in 3 arenas or 2 or whatever that is, that we have one swimming pool central, that we have everything central, and that we become a township rather than 4 towns or villages. So we haven't gone that far, to be honest with you, Councillor Tarnowski, but we're mainly looking at the Colliers project.
Any other questions? Councillor Sosi?
So you are planning like a pool and design, you're planning with 2 or just whatever you said,
I
what
think
council
it's
decides?
whatever council decides.
Okay.
We're looking to support council.
Okay, and I saw that you do have the schools, which is good, because, you know, I think we should also have the youth perspective of what they want in the community, and, because that would be a real help for them.
We've learned a lot, what we did right and what we could have done better from the Swartstone. And that's why we're actually here today, in order to make sure that we're working in step with the council and with the administration. We're trying to engage, or we're ready to engage the entire community, whoever that may be. And we may have missed some people on that. And if we have, we'll make sure that we add them. But everybody has a stake in it, and it's an opportunity to bring the entire community together on one unifying project. We're pretty excited about it.
Conseiller Brisson?
I think it's a good idea that it's a more kind of neutral committee to help some funding, to do some funding that are used to do it, and that you're able to get a bit more different group and not pulling your string on each side that, the other one is not participating because the other club is, and I think it's for myself, I think it's a good idea. Thank you for that initiative.
Let's see.
Thank you very much. I think it would be unanimous around the table that we're definitely interested in working with the organization you're forming. I think that we have a lot on our plate right now as far as timing wise, what's the project actually going to be. I know, as you mentioned earlier, we worked together on the sports dome, some positives, some things that could need improving. At this point in time, I think that, it would be sound to give direction to the administration to bring back maybe a report on how we can best work together. La volonté est là, définitivement. Je pense que la volonté est ici du bord du conseil. C'est juste faire certain that we clearly establish how we're going to work moving forward. Monsieur Leduc, as-tu des commentaires du tout?
Monsieur le maire du conseil, I'm just hearing your side of the story. I've not had a chance to discuss with the committee at all on this project, so I'll give my comments to council in a report.
Yeah, okay, so there'll be some discussions between both groups, the administration and your group, and then that way administration can bring back something to council that we can put on paper and how we're going to move forward as working together.
Perfect.
I think that's a good way to go. Everybody seems okay with that? Yeah,
Absolutely. Yeah.
perfect.
Yeah, also that way it will make it clear also for if they're able to issue receipt, because whenever you're doing fundraising, often that's what they're asking, so there will be a bit of confirming who's responsible of what and what can be claimed or not.
Crossing the T's, dotting the I's. And I think we have time. We're anticipating some feedback from the province or the feds in the next 3-4 months. Hopefully, we hear something, and that'll help determine which direction we're sort of going to go in. Because, I think the sports complex was a perfect example. We started doing fundraising. It went really well, but a lot of people were hesitant because we hadn't confirmed what it was actually going to be in the project. Once council has a good understanding of what's actually included, then I think it'll be a little bit easier to get some fundraising going as well. So, perfect. Well, thank you very much for the presentation. I look forward to you guys having discussions with the administration and bringing back a report to council.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thanks very much, everyone. Next item, delegations, we have none. Item 10, consent items. Motion that all items listed under consent items be received as presented. We have item A, minutes of the Limoges Citizens Committee of January 14th, 2020. Item B, minutes of the Parks, Recreation, and Culture Advisory Committee of November 12th, 2019. Item C, minutes of the Accessibility Advisory Committee of November 13th, 2019. And item D, minutes of the Township of Russell Public Library Board, January 23rd, 2020. Need a mover and a seconder? Moved by Councilor Tarnowski, second by Councilor Bisson. All those in favor? All those opposed? Carried. Move on to item 11, reports from departments and council committees. The first one being Council Remuneration Bylaw Update Report FS 01A-2020. First off, we'll remove this from the consent items. I would suggest that we don't need to have this discussion twice. When it's time to vote, we can have the discussion at that point in time. If we've already had this discussion multiple times, everybody seems okay with that? So we'll have further discussion when it's the voting on this subject. Move on to item B, Noise Bylaw Amendment Report PIC 01-2020 for parking lot party in Russell between 12 p.m. and 11 p.m. on June 20th, 2020. And the council received report PIC 01-2020 dated March 2nd, 2020, and approves, as recommended in this report, the noise bylaw exemption to allow the Russell Legion to hold a parking lot party fundraiser in the parking lot of the Russell Legion between 12 p.m. and 11 p.m. on June 20th, 2020. Questions from members of council? Councilor Associate?
Yeah, I was just curious, was there any issues last year that you had concerns about?
No, they were responsible to notify the people residing in the vicinity, and they were also responsible to find the parking space for us.
And everything went.
And everything is good.
Perfect, thank you. Other questions? Questions of the No? Move on to the next item. Item C, Economic Development Semi-Annual Activity Report, Report EcoDev 02-2020. The council receives Report EcoDev 02-2020 dated March 3rd, 2020. Mr. Leduc, Madame Tremblay, I'm sure you'd like to speak to this report. Anything special you want to highlight?
No, I think the report has mostly all the information, and yeah, there's nothing more to add.
Okay. Questions, members of council? Councilor Associate?
Yeah, I was just curious also with the additional bus, has the issue been dealt with about passengers standing?
Madame Tremblay?
Yeah, through Mr. Mayor, I've just requested this afternoon the count, and there's approximately 12 to 10 people using that extra bus, and we never had any more complaints since that bus was implemented. The only suggestion is that we'll see how it goes, but we may, the one in the morning is less busy than the two in the afternoon, so we'll have to maybe adjust where we're using that extra bus, but no other complaints were filed after that the bus was installed.
And the only other comment I had was I'm really happy to see that we're continuing with the business profiles. And will you be, are the businesses aware to submit their profile? Like, because there's some that have never been profiled, so.
Madame Tremblay?
So originally, we had a list of businesses that were already on that list, but since the last 2 years, we do a post on Facebook for businesses that are interested to be part of our business profile, so they're the one seeking us for doing that business profile.
Okay.
And since this year as approved in the budget, we, once the business profile is done, we print a plaque, and the plaque is given to the businesses so they could showcase that the township was there to help them increase their visibility for the businesses. So they really appreciate the plaque that we're giving them.
There is, like one, I'll use an example, is Lady Joe's. Like
Yeah.
so many people don't really know that that's a gift shop.
Yeah.
There's a lot of misconception out there still.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe it's a name or whatever. But so, that would be like, and I've heard from some business owners that they don't feel we're doing enough, so I'm just wondering if they're not aware that they can be part of this program.
I think the message is hard to get out, especially since we don't have a business registry that allows us to know all the businesses. Like, if we had a business registry, it'd be a quick email, contact person, but that's something I believe is in the strategic plan, business plan to work on as well.
Yeah, so it's in our business plan, and as well, the business profile is in Le Reflet, it's on our Facebook, and I think we're out there as much as we can, and every time there's a new business that come, we offer them the opportunity for us to go and meet with them and do that business profile. So we do one business profile every month. We could go up to 2 if council wishes to, in the budget of 2021, this is something that we could look at. But right now, we're just doing one business profile every month.
Yeah, it's just maybe some of the older businesses are getting forgotten, the new ones. But thank you for that.
D'autres questions? Conseiller Buisson et Councilor Canasco?
Oui, c'est dans ce rapport-là qu'il parlait des dîners-conférences et tout ça. Est-ce qu'il y avait de quoi de concrétiser avec des dates et tout ça?
Monsieur Maire, donc la semaine prochaine, on a une rencontre avec les comptes unis justement pour faire un suivi sur le BRNE qui a été fait 2 ans passés. Donc les Lunch and Learn ont été faits l'année passée basés sur les sujets qui étaient ressortis le plus à travers les entreprises qui avaient été recensées. Donc on attend cette rencontre-là justement pour déterminer nos sujets pour les prochains Lunch and Learn. Mais il va en avoir encore 4 cette année, puis j'enverrai le courriel aux membres du conseil pour vous aviser des sujets et des dates qui vont avoir lieu au niveau de ça. Donc, on attend juste cette rencontre-là pour vraiment confirmer les sujets des prochains Lunch and Learn.
Parfait, merci. Councilor Canasco?
Madame Tremblay, je voulais vous féliciter, c'est un bon rapport, c'est un feel-good report, plein de bonnes choses, puis c'est le fun de voir ça. J'avais une question au sujet du signage de l'Industrial Park. Est-ce qu'on a eu du feedback des personnes qui sont sur la pancarte comme telle? Puis est-ce qu'il y a des plans, je ne me rappelle pas si on avait discuté ça ou pas, mais s'il y avait des plans à en rajouter ou pas?
Madame Tremblay?
La première réponse à votre deuxième question, c'est non, on n'avait pas de plan pour le moment d'en ajouter une autre. Le seul feedback qu'on a eu, c'est on avait planifié le premier 6 mois seulement de revenus de janvier à juin on pensait pas que ça aurait été si populaire que ça, mais on a comblé tous nos espaces à l'intérieur d'un mois. Fait que probablement, pour réviser la réponse à votre deuxième question, c'est que oui, faudrait peut-être anticiper un autre endroit éventuellement, peut-être le long de Burton, dans la nouvelle section, un peu plus quand les gens viennent d'Ottawa sur un autre, pas nécessairement par l'autoroute, d'avoir une autre enseigne. Ça avait été regardé avec l'ancienne enseigne qui était là, de la relocaliser à cet endroit-là, mais on est limité avec les endroits possibles. Donc, avec les achats futurs des terrains qui s'en viennent de Burton, ça serait probablement l'endroit préférable. Fait que oui, on va garder ça dans la tête.
Ça paraît super bien, surtout le soir.
Oui, avec les lumières, oui. Merci. Puis, juste en passant aussi, juste pour... on va finaliser l'aménagement ce printemps aussi au niveau de la base de l'enseigne. Donc, ça va être fait au printemps cette année.
Parfait. Nos questions? Conseiller Brisson?
Oui, c'était juste de savoir un update pour le savoir local. Je sais qu'il avait parlé peut-être que ça allait changer, tout ça. C'était à quoi que c'était rendu, les démarches et...
Madame Tremblay?
Donc, c'est dans notre plan d'affaires d'apporter un rapport au conseil début d'année. Donc, ça s'en vient bientôt pour offrir des options d'alternatives au niveau du rendez-vous des savoirs locales. Puis à ce moment-là, ce sera la décision du conseil d'aller avec l'alternative ou de continuer pour une autre année avec le rendez-vous. Donc, vous allez avoir un rapport de vendu bientôt.
OK, juste clarifier. Donc, il me semble conseil, on avait décidé cette année, c'était le Local Flavors. OK. OK. Parfait. Je sais que tu regardais des options, mais je pensais que c'était pour être en effet l'année prochaine. Parce qu'on avait parlé de même qu'on devrait avoir deux événements par année, mais on voulait garder le Local Flavors.
Je pense que la décision, à travers vous, M. Lemont, la décision était basée sur un rapport qui était supposé être présenté par le département pour voir si cette année on continuait ou si on le faisait à tous les 2 ans. Puis ce serait quoi les alternatives? Parce qu'au moment où on avait présenté le rapport, on n'avait pas d'autres alternatives à apporter dans le conseil.
Parfait. Merci. OK. D'autres questions? Non? Quelque chose d'autre à ajouter? Non? Move on to the next item. Item D. Infrastructure Services Semi-Annual Activity Report, Report IS 01-2020. The council receives Report IS 01-2020 dated March 2nd, 2020. Monsieur Bourgon, anything specific you'd like to highlight?
Merci, Monsieur le maire. Donc, je suis prêt, juste dans le fond, féliciter encore une fois le travail de l'équipe pour s'assurer que les projets capitaux, en majeure partie, ont été complétés ou du moins entamés. One of our big contract last year was the waste collection contract. So that one actually starting today. Our new contractor is now doing those pickups. So that was a big one that we worked on last year. And maybe I can tell council that last month, January, so 2 months ago, we did apply for the funding for the reconstruction of the storm sewer in Russell. So that was the fourth and last stream for the ICIP funding with the province and feds.
Okay. That would explain why they were later than usual today picking up my recycling, because it was a different company doing it. Enough to notice, usually the first thing in the morning. Il y avait une question juste sur le paving. Juste confirmer, la paving de Saint-Thomas, il y avait section 25-20. Ça allait jusqu'à la fin. Je pense qu'on avait une demande, je voulais juste faire certain que...
Effectivement, Saint-Thomas, ce serait le segment au complet.
OK. Parfait. Pas au nord, mais juste au sud.
Exactement.
OK. Parfait. D'autres questions, membres du conseil? Quelque chose d'autre à ajouter, M. Bourgon? Correct? Parfait. Move on to the next item. Item E, Term of Reference Environmental Advisory Committee Report ISPW 03-2020. The council receives report ISPW 03-2020 dated March 2nd, 2020 and approves the proposed changes to terms of reference of the EAC. Questions, comments, members of council? Councilor Associate?
Yeah, I just had a question. I was reviewing these terms of reference, and I was just curious why in our mandate it just said the forum is to have discussion on environmental issues, where we you know, the other committees all say they can make recommendations or they can make advice, but on ours, it's just discussion. So that was the one verbiage that I was concerned about. Like, I know you had some concerns, Monsieur Leduc, on the verbiage from before, but that was just one that kind of jumped out at me. I went looking at the other terms of reference. I was just curious as to why.
Monsieur Leduc?
Mr. Mayor, I see in the document, there's a section 4, which says advise and make recommendations to council on environment-related issues. So it's there. So it seems to be the second page of that term of reference.
Okay, yep. All right, that's good. Thank you. That was an oversight. Merci.
Just to confirm, sorry, my mistake, I should have asked before, but Appendix 1, it says it's the current term, and then Appendix 2 is the proposed. Ça se peut-tu que c'est le renverse?
No.
So on enlève la section, on enlève une section dans la section toute en rouge, en bas au fond, numéro 8, Ensure Cooperation. Just want to make sure.
Donc, la première attachement, c'est ce qui avait été présenté, la recommandation du comité.
Puis nous
Puis
autres,
en
on fait les
deuxième,
changements.
c'est ce que l'administration recommande au conseil comme changement.
Parfait.
Donc, il est essentiellement là, un ajout au point numéro 2, lorsqu'on compare avec les termes de référence existants.
Ok. Parfait. Je voulais juste faire certain que c'était, on avait la bonne chose. Ok. D'autres questions? Parfait. We'll move on to the next item. Item F, Parks and Recreation Semi-Annual Activity Report, Report PR02-2020. That council receives Report PR02-2020 dated March 2nd, 2020. Any specific questions, members of council? Conseiller Tarnowski, conseiller associé?
Juste une question sur les revenus pour le centre Camille Piché. On a plus d'heures en 2019, mais moins de revenus. Juste à savoir c'est quoi l'explication. C'est pas une grosse différence, mais juste. Je pense qu'en 2018, il y avait comme 1086 heures, 1087 heures, puis quasiment 29 000.
Merci, Monsieur le maire,
Oui.
du conseil. Je vais vérifier, mais certainement, le cas qu'on vous avait apporté à un moment donné, lorsqu'on alloue les permis d'occasion spéciale, pour nous, c'est des heures de location, mais il y a moins de revenus générés parce qu'on n'a pas la barre.
Ah, d'accord.
C'est ça.
Ok, c'est bon. Parfait. Puis je pense hourly rate versus full
Non.
day rate.
Au
Ça,
centre communautaire
notre horaire,
Camille
c'est
Piché,
tout
on
le temps
n'a
la
pas
pleine
de,
journée.
on n'a pas d'hourly rate déterminé.
Ok. Councilor Sosia?
Yeah, so the one thing that was addressed in there was on the encroachment. I'm just wondering when that is going to be addressed. I know we've discussed that in the past.
Monsieur Leduc, Madame Victor?
Merci, Monsieur le maire, membre du conseil. Last year, we did the survey was done on the whole trail by Volabec, the surveyors. So early spring, we will be visiting physically all of that encroachment, and then a report will be brought forward to council to address that encroachment, all the encroachments.
And the other question I had was about under fostering healthy communities, the parks policy. What is that exactly? Like, do you want to update parks policy?
We have a parks policy that has not been revised. It's under the bylaw department with Mrs. Bordeaux. So we want to work together and reviewing that policy and make it more up to date. if you like.
And the New Frontiers, remind me what that is? I know
New
it was-
Frontiers was a program for challenged kids that I started about, I'd say 8-9 years ago. We had received funding from the provincial government of $25,000. So we started that program, and that program is still on. We've had some difficulties in the last 2-3 years in fulfilling the registrations, and I think the main reason was because our main customers are young adults now. So they have little jobs, they're very busy people. So it's hard now to get them as registrants. So we're revamping, we want to revamp the whole program, so.
And are we working in partnership with Belarus or?
It's for challenged kids,
Okay.
young adults, yeah, yeah.
And are we working in partnership with Belarus on
Yes,
that?
we did, yeah, we started working with them, yeah,
See?
yeah.
Councillor Ryan, then Councillor Janoski.
Since in the report you have a thing about the sports dome, came to light, I got a notification from a resident about the sports dome fees for the walking track, and I noticed you put a whole bunch of people here and your whatever. So I pulled up the actual user fee bylaw, and it talks about the walking track and the running track, and you have an adult fee, we have a family pass, we have a student pass and a senior pass. What about the 12 and under?
I'm not too sure, I don't believe they have to pay for the 12 and under. I could
That-
check, but it's part of the family package.
No,
And-
but
sorry.
if somebody is going in and taking a monthly pass for $20, an adult,
An adult, yeah.
what is the cost of somebody who's 12 or under?
I'd have to do double check, because I don't have the user fee in front of me, but.
It's silent on it, it doesn't say.
Okay.
I know.
I kind of,
I have
Yeah,
in
we
the
had
back
the
of my
discussion
mind,
before.
I thought we had the discussion
Yeah.
at one point that
yeah,
if you were 12 and under, you had to be accompanied by an
An
adult.
adult.
Right.
It was free.
it was free. Yeah, we don't charge them.
Okay, the answer that was given at the time was they gotta pay the full $20 adult fee.
And that answer was given by the staff?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Okay.
So, pardon me?
I can double check with the staff, make sure that,
Can you? Because I think at that point in time, we need to put something on the website or on, in the fee structure
Yeah.
somewhere
Okay.
that says 12 and under is free when accompanied by an adult.
okay.
Because right now it doesn't speak to it, and I've gotten a couple of different people that ask me about that, now that the walking track is there and
Okay.
stuff, so.
Okay, unfortunately, it was not brought to our attention, so we'll look into it. Okay.
Okay. Well, I know it was brought to staff's attention, Sonia's attention,
Okay.
because that's who the person spoke to.
Okay.
And she wasn't aware, and I think she just off the top of her head said it's the same fee
Okay.
as the adult, which to me
Yeah,
makes
yeah,
no sense.
because I kind of remember having this discussion here, so.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Janoski?
J'avais une dernière petite question au sujet des, the annual passes, like the monthlies seem to have gone up really nicely in the
Mhm.
sports dome, but the annual ones dropped significantly for adults and students. Is there anything that you're worried about or anything like that around that?
Madame Piton?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of council. No, I'm not worried, because I think it's more a financial thing, because the passes it's like a bigger amount of money that
Okay.
people have to inject in one time. So a lot of people prefer the monthly. Some of them also because they don't use it during the summer, so they feel that 5, 6 months, whatever, is better for them, and it's more suited. And as you can see, we're not in loss of revenue, so, yeah.
Good question. I'll just, in regards to the multi-sport court, looking at the numbers, I look at the gym, which is actually smaller than the multi-court, bringing in 125K in revenue. And then you look at the multi-sport court, where it's bringing in roughly about $9,000. So I think there's an opportunity there to maybe look at making improvements, because it doesn't, per square footage, the revenue difference is incredible. So just, I know you're aware, we've had similar discussions, but I look forward to seeing something along those, that line of how can we best get the return on your investment for that group. Any other questions? Move on to the next item. Item G, agreement with the Association Cyclistes en Brun, report PR 03-2020. The council receives report PR 03-2020 dated March 2nd, 2020, and approves that the Director of Parks and Recreation sign the contract agreement with the Association Cyclistes en Brun for the authorization to use the Richelieu Park. Questions, comments, members of council? Conseiller Brisson.
Je suis juste vraiment content, parce que ça fait déjà, comme c'était marqué, 2 ans que ça travaille dessus. On l'énerve dessus. Je suis content qu'ils ont venu à des ententes. Puis, parce que comme on l'avait déjà mentionné, ça s'en vient de plus en plus populaire. Puis de pouvoir le promouvoir, je pense que c'est un très bon plus. Merci beaucoup pour tout l'ouvrage.
D'autres questions? Quelque chose à ajouter, Madame Hippolyte?
No, like Mr. Councillor Brisson mentioned, there was some work that was started back in 2017, but then the group had to get their chart, and so I'm glad that, and yeah, like we said before, it's a new promotion of a new sport, and it's very, very popular, like in the Leros for us, it took a lot, it's been expanding every year, so I'm glad to be part of that.
Parfait, merci beaucoup. On va faire la promotion. Conseiller Brisson?
Juste, es-tu au courant à combien que l'association est rendue de membres?
The last time I had talked to Mr. Ryan, he was talking about 60 participants, so, but that was like 2 years ago, so they might have more now. So I'll be in touch with him soon to tell him the good news.
Because I know that I've talked to some people I've met on bicycle, and they were coming from Gatineau, and they were comparing it to the Parc de Gatineau and saying some parts were even better, and
Nice to hear. Another reason to come to Russell Township. Parfait. Prochain item H, le Festival Jeux Franco-Ontarien, rapport PR04-2020. The council receives report PR04-2020 dated March 2nd, 2020, and approves the request for support from the Fédération de la Jeunesse Franco-Ontarienne regarding the rental of the hall's facility contracts, but declined funding for the rental of chairs. Questions, comments, members of council? Conseiller Laurent?
Do we have any idea where they're going to be using to feed all these people? Is it gonna be in Emblem, Russell, local, or, because I know they're staying in Castle. But is there an economic benefit to Emblem and Russell Township? Because that, to me, has a big significant difference, and, I mean, we're already giving out $8,000 in benefit. So that's my question before I move on to $1,200.
Yeah, just to be clear, there are some staying in Casman, but a lot of them are staying at the actual high school in Embra. They're sleeping in our municipal buildings.
Okay.
So, Monsieur Brisson, that's built.
it's just that in Castleman they're just going for sleeping, but all the meal will be in Emblem, and it's Nabonbook that is responsible to supply all the meal for the kids and the volunteer for all the weekend. So the other one that participate, they will go in different restaurants around here, but for the participant and the volunteer, it's all through the Nabonbook the contract.
And that'll be for the meals, snacks, pops, all that kind of stuff. I'm sure they're going to be going to local, local facilities.
It's
to
all
grab that.
Nabonbook from Mr. Saraj.
Chips and stuff too? Oh, okay.
Easy.
Perfect. Okay, anything else? I think they, when they did their presentation, they realized this is probably the direction we're going, and they mentioned they'll be trying to get sponsors for the, help pay for the chairs and that kind of stuff as well, so, we'll see if there's some.
As it was mentioned too, there is the school that we're probably ready to supply some chairs.
Okay. D'autres questions? Quelque chose d'autre à ajouter? Non? We'll move on to the next item. Item I, user fee corrections for last minute ice rentals, report PR 05-2020. The council receives report PR 05-2020 dated March 2nd, 2020, and approves, one, the proposed bylaw to amend Schedule A9 Parks and Recreation fees of the user and charges bylaw 2019-160 with respect to last minute ice rental, and two, that appropriate adjustments will be made to the Russell Municipal Facilities Rental Allocation Policy on an ulterior date. Questions, comments, members of council? Conseiller Laurent?
I'm just looking it over, and I mean, there's what, a month left in the rental of the facilities this year, and then we're moving in May to another fee structure based on a surcharge and all this stuff. Would it not just make sense, and I'm sure that administration can fix the numbers up as they need to, but can't we just say it's $100 for last minute ice rental to simplify things, and it's an easy advertising? It's not $94 plus this, plus this, plus this to get to another number. And in the background, we can have it all broken down, but in the bylaw, you have it set out, but to the people, it's just $100, and they pay the fee. And then if it's, if the number is $84 plus the 6 plus HST gets you to that $100 amount. Like, I think it's just simpler to do it that way, and then for May, just readjust those numbers to get to the $100. That's my opinion. I think it's just an easier sell at that $100 rate. Just boom, it's all encompassing. We don't have to worry about all the other stuff. Nothing frustrates me more than when they advertise something for one thing and then it's all of a sudden there's extra fees and and whatnot. But I'm not saying you did anything wrong. Trust me. I'm just now that I'm seeing it broken out, I'm like, can't we just simplify it? So that's my thing to council is I think we should just make it a $100 flat rate through next year's sports season and not just for another month.
Okay. Any other questions, comments, members of council? Anything to add from the administration?
No, I don't think you.
Can we remove this one from the consent items then, please? Thank you.
Item J, Integrity Commissioner Report CL01-2020. The council received report CL01-2020 dated March 2nd, 2020, and provides a direction with respect to 1, Block 2 training, and 2, contract amendment. Need a mover and a second. Oh, no, not at this point in time. Sorry, I'm getting ahead of myself. Questions, comments, members of council? Councilor Sosi.
Well, I actually probably have more of a question on 12A, and which is that also on this topic?
On 12A?
The annual report.
Oh, the annual report.
Yeah,
Okay, well, when we get to 12A, then you want to hold
Okay.
off till then?
sure.
Okay.
Because I do have a couple of questions and, just, again, some of the wording I'm not in favor of.
Okay. So in regards to, for one, the block training, I think we should just do like last time, ask for a PowerPoint presentation. And once we have that PowerPoint presentation, we can decide at that point in time if we actually want the IC to come in and give a formal training session, or we just start off like we did last time. Last time we received the PowerPoint presentation, we looked at it, we didn't see a need to actually pay for someone to come in and give us course. Everybody okay in that direction? Okay. Item 2, in regards to confirm the IC, the township acknowledges receipt of this change, but the township will not amend the bylaw agreement as proposed by the IC's letter of February 2020, and then we'll seek to obtain the new insurance certificate as well as WSIB or equivalent coverage as required in the contract. Ça, c'est la recommandation comme telle. Everybody okay with the recommendation on that? Okay. Ça, c'est clair, Monsieur le Duc, Madame Camille Laflamme? Okay. And we'll move on to the next item. Item K, Accessibility Advisory Committee Recommendations 2020-001. The council receives recommendation 2020-001 dated February 12th, 2020 from the Accessibility Advisory Committee with respect to the creation of an accessible entrance during the paving of the ANTHEM tennis courts in spring 2020. Monsieur le Duc, Madame Conseiller Brisson?
Yeah, I just want to pull that item out, and following the discussion we had at the last meeting, I have some things to add for some backbone to this resolution. For the whereas.
Okay, but just to be clear, we cannot change the recommendation of the committee because it's already been approved by the committee.
Yeah, but
This-
it's just some backbone to the.
No, but you can speak to why you wanna do it, but essentially they're asking, because what this resolution is, or what the recommendation is that council receives the recommendation. That part you cannot change.
No.
2020-01 dated February 12th, 2020 from the Accessibility Advisory Committee with respect to the creation of accessible entrance during the paving of the ANTHEM tennis courts in spring 2020. So if you want to speak to the reasoning behind it, I would suggest you do that. We don't need that in the recommendation itself.
Okay.
We're only receiving, right?
Yeah.
Well, that's it. We're receiving the recommendation, so.
I know that the last meeting, we said instead of just having the resolution, we need some backbone, like
That would be
whereas.
in the recommendation from the committee itself.
Yeah, it's just that whenever it was sent, it was too late.
Right, but that's what I'm saying, you
Yeah.
cannot change that recommendation because it's
So-
approved by that committee.
Is it good to mention it now, the whereas, or?
Ben, tu peux dire pourquoi tu veux l'avoir,
Ouais.
mais c'est pas quelque chose qu'on va ajouter à la
Ok.
recommandation de recevoir.
Okay.
So, si tu veux mentionner, c'est les raisonnements en arrière.
So, the raisonnement, c'est whereas the tennis court in Embrun is not wheelchair accessible, because there's some step at the door, and whereas there is some plan in the budget to repave their service, therefore be it resolved that they look to be made wheelchair accessible at the same time. Example, to change the access door, of course.
Okay. Monsieur Leduc, Madame Vital, was there anything in the budget for that work this year?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Members of council, no, the money that was planned was to resurface the tennis courts. We would have to look into what kind of money you're talking about, because obviously you have to reframe another door in the chain link and then pave that pathway. Because I understand also that between the tennis court and like, it's almost like with the Camille Pichet Hall, there's a little bit of a swale there. So we have to look into how much it would cost to build a proper ramp to get to the tennis court.
Mais c'est pas dans le budget cette année. So perhaps what we can do is we can receive this report and give direction to the administration to look at this item and bring back a report so that we know exactly what's involved in that.
Mhm.
The basis of it was just that if there was some changes to be made before paving, that, and it doesn't cost much, that it could be made, and then whenever we pave, the entrance can be paved at the same time, so that there is no
Yeah.
gap in between.
Monsieur Leduc?
I think the paving gap is one thing, it seems to be easy to resolve, but the issue you mentioned was about removing or relocating the door. Could be a difference, or a different, or significant cost difference between the project. So we would have to look at that and make recommendations to council regarding that, if we do or not, or a later time, or now, or bring more funding, but right now, if it's paving, it's one thing, if it's moving a door and.
Well, I think that's the point of the report, right? Is to look at it and bring it back to council, that way we know what's involved. If there has to be additional funds found from somewhere else, then we can't just give carte blanche to go ahead, we have to be able to justify the
It,
cost.
it was just to, the committee said to bring it so that we look at it before
Yeah.
to see what it involved.
Yeah, Monsieur Leduc?
Did the committee talk about it, or I mean, did somebody actually go and say it's not accessible? Or
They did.
have we made the measurements for?
It's not accessible because people, because there's some step there.
Okay, but I mean, is the width of the entrance wide enough for a wheelchair or not?
I'm not sure for that part. That's why it would have to be checked. That's why I'm asking that
You
if,
just look at it.
that
Okay.
the staff can look at it, what's possible.
Because many times the accessible committee has made recommendations, but they had been on site and actually tried it. So that's why I was asking if they had tried the entrance, not the paving, but just the entrance side, if there was an actual fact, or if it's just a perceived thing to be looked at.
I know that they cannot try it because of the step, but we didn't make the measurement
Okay.
if it was fitting in, but I know with the step, it's not.
As-tu besoin d'un amendement à la résolution de juste accepter, you guys can take care of that, Monsieur Leduc?
Every time a committee makes a recommendation, staff takes no position, that's why we suggest the council to receive it. Now, if council wants to do something more than receive it, that's when council brings an amendment to the resolution to say, we'd like to have this or that added to. So, I think we have to talk to council to add something.
Okay, on va séparer les thèmes. Councilor Ryan?
So in this circumstance, we would receive the
Recommendation?
the resolution as drafted, and then add an amendment to give direction to staff to look at the costing of the resolution?
Or option.
Is that what
And
I'm,
come
is
back
that what I'm
and report
understanding?
back to council,
Yeah.
yeah, essentially. Okay, so we'll remove this item, we'll vote on it separately. Next item, item L, renovation project at Town Hall, report PD 23-2020. The council receives report PD 23-2020 dated March 2nd, 2020, and approves the proposed bylaw to award the contract for the proposed renovations to Krista Construction for the total amount of construction, $48,336, including HST, no refundable portion of 1.76%. Questions, comments, members of council? Councilor Janoski.
So just the obvious question, so we're going from a 10K approved budget to 60,000. What's changed because we've only gone through the budgeting process a few months ago, so just know what's changed.
Yeah, I don't think there's reference that there was changes made to the scope of the project, but maybe specify those in Monsieur Leduc, Madame Tremblay.
Initialement, c'était vraiment juste pour adresser les nouveaux employés qui ont embauché au niveau du planning de ce qui avait été approuvé au budget. Donc, il y avait des bureaux, des choses comme ça, puis de séparer des bureaux existants. Mais on s'est aperçu qu'il n'y avait pas assez de place, donc on a proposé de séparer le bureau du maire, puis d'insonoriser certains bureaux, donc le bureau de M. Leduc, qui n'était pas initialement dans le scope du travail. Donc, nous, c'était vraiment pour adresser les employés d'Extra, mais étant donné que le contracteur est déjà ici, on a profité de réaménager les espaces au niveau de la photocopieuse. Donc, la photocopieuse, quand on sort de l'ascenseur, c'est à cet endroit-là, mais pour être capable de donner une porte au bureau du monsieur le maire et de créer une nouvelle salle de bureau, on doit relocaliser ça aussi, qui n'était pas dans le scope du travail initialement.
D'autres questions? Conseiller Brisson?
Juste clarifier, comme avec les deux salles qu'il y avait ici, c'était déjà pensé que ça ferait une troisième salle?
Monsieur Leduc, Madame Tremblay?
Donc, les urbanistes qui sont présentement en bas vont être relocalisés en haut, qui, eux autres, rencontrent des gens régulièrement au comptoir. C'était déjà un problème parce que Byla partage le même comptoir que Planning. Donc, la salle qui est créée, la salle de bureau, va être sensiblement pour ces gens-là, quand on rencontre des gens qui veulent détacher leur terrain, des changements de zonage, les urbanistes vont pouvoir aller dans cette salle de rencontre-là, faire du 1 à 1 avec les propriétaires. Puis on laisse les salles de bureau aux gens qui ont des grosses rencontres ou des rencontres de plusieurs personnes qui...
Ça fait que là, ça sera plus en bas que tu vas aller pour si tu veux séparer les terrains, des choses comme ça?
Exactement. Donc, Claire est une des urbanistes qui va monter en haut avec la nouvelle personne qu'on va engager. Donc, eux autres vont avoir une place dédiée pour faire du 1 à 1 avec des clients. Même les autres employés aussi, ce ne sera pas seulement réservé aux urbanistes, mais souvent les bylaws ont des personnes qui veulent rencontrer ou des informations qui sont un peu plus confidentielles, qui vont pouvoir utiliser ce bureau-là. Donc, on crée un espace de bureau vraiment pour du 1 à 1 avec les clients et les résidents qui veulent pas nécessairement que tout le monde au comptoir entende la conversation.
Juste pour clarifier, l'élévateur comme c'est là, there's a security feature, you need a fob to go up to the floor.
Yeah.
So there'll still have to be meetings planned. Staff will have to come and get the resident to go up on the fourth floor, correct?
Yeah, you're correct.
Okay, just making sure. Councilor Janoski, and then Conseiller Laurent.
Juste une dernière question, peut-être pour M. Godin. Le 50 000 va venir de où?
Monsieur Godin?
Through Mr. Mayor, donc le coût additionnel va venir de la réserve de la construction.
Ok, fait que ça n'a pas d'impact sur le budget comme tel.
Conseiller Laurent?
Probably just an omission in the history, reference, and support information. But I would assume that when we talk about, in the second sentence, it says the room, we'll be creating a meeting room available to the mayor as well as staff, that it meant council as well. Other councilors to be able to use that room.
Monsieur Leduc?
I think in the future, that will be more possible than right now. When the mayor is sitting in his office, it's hard to have a councilor having a meeting, so that room, when it's gonna be available, it's made available to anyone needing to meet. So that's an additional room for that purpose.
I didn't mean today, I meant as it was, as it's drafted, it's saying that in the future, the mayor can use it, staff can use it, but it doesn't mention the rest of council. So I'm just asking if that's something that other council members will be able to use.
That's what I responded, yes, in the future, once it's built, it will be made available to whoever wants to use it, if it's free, so that means also including members of the council.
Okay, thank you. Conseiller Brisson?
Je sais qu'il y avait eu des travaux là, pour la chaufferette, air conditionné, tout ça, chose, puis ça avait pris du temps à ajuster. Est-ce que ces travaux-là vont les affecter, vu que ça va être séparé différemment?
Monsieur Leduc, Madame Tremblay, qui est pris en conséquence avec le...
Les travaux qui ont été faits, c'est vraiment pour tout l'espace complet de l'hôtel de ville. Je parlerai pas pour, je connais de ce que j'ai pu comprendre de ce qui a été fait. Non, donc les divisions de terrain, le planning sort. Les divisions de bureaux affecteront pas l'air et des choses comme ça. Ça a été pris en considération avec le plan. Donc le plan a été fait en fonction de garder les bouches d'air, puis des choses comme ça, puis les murs qui étaient déjà existants pour pouvoir mettre un mur dans les fenêtres. Donc, ça a pris en considération l'état existant des bureaux qui vont être séparés. Donc, la compagnie qui est retenue nous a confirmé qu'elle pourrait commencer dans les plus brefs délais, puis environ 2 semaines, les travaux seraient complétés.
Dans ce temps-là, est-ce que le staff va être relocalisé ailleurs?
Moi, oui.
J'aime aussi,
Oui.
c'est le cas.
Les 2 autres sont pas au bureau, donc, en ce moment.
D'où qui était dans
Donc, comme on avait parlé, Mme Roy est partie en vacances, puis l'autre urbaniste n'est pas encore à l'emploi d'inspecteur.
Alors, c'est le meilleur timing pour le faire.
C'est exactement.
Okay. Parfait. D'autres questions? Move on to the next item. Item M, Building and Plumbing Semi-Annual Activity Report, Report PD 19-2020. The council receives report PD 19-2020 dated March 2nd, 2020. Questions, comments, members of council? Anything you'd like to highlight, Madame Tremblay?
I just want to mention in the last chart of the report that the difference between the number of permits for the entire year is wrong. It's not 65, it's 206.
206?
Yeah. So that means that we've issued 206 permit more than the previous year.
Which had already been much higher than the previous year.
Yeah. So just to just and phase on those numbers, just for letting you know that the multi-residential, what we're trying to push as much as possible to have the diversity in the type of building that we're building in the township increased of 116 compared to 2018, and 86 more single detached dwelling. So we're seeing more and more. The industrial, you'll see it probably more this year, as we know that there's a lot of new industrial buildings that are coming up in the 2020 year.
Perfect. Thank you very much. Councilor Sosi?
So we're hiring one, permit clerk. So that
Madame Tremblay?
I'm not gonna say that it's gonna speed up the building permit, because technically we have 4 building inspectors that are issuing those building permits, but that permit clerk is gonna for sure help remove some of the work out of the building inspector, so that person will be responsible for scheduling their schedule basically on an everyday basis, and take care of all the entries in the system for issuing building permits. So it's gonna help a lot for sure.
And what is our proposed turnaround time, like?
At this moment, it's about 2 weeks,
2 weeks?
once the application is complete.
Which is standard.
Yeah.
The ministry sets out standards for us, and that's within the standard.
Yeah.
Correct. Conseiller Brisson?
Oui, dans le tableau, avec les building permit. Je sais pas, c'est quel Township, c'est
Peux-tu aller au top de la liste?
Juste ça. Ouais. Je voyais comme dans les résidentiels, puis c'est marqué, un c'est autre résidentiel, puis le nombre a monté, le nombre, mais le montant diminué. Mais c'est, pour commencer, c'est quoi cette classe-là? Puis pourquoi que c'est à peu près le même montant, mais ça a diminué de plus que la moitié?
Donc, ce qu'on retrouve dans les autres résidentiels, c'est les garages, les sheds, les rénovations, les in-law suites, on met ça dans les autres résidentiels. Donc, c'est pas considéré comme un single ou un multi, fait que ça tombe dans la catégorie des autres résidentiels. Puis j'ai eu la même question, c'est qu'on a eu un in-law suite qui a été la valeur qui a été donnée. Donc, il faut retenir que la valeur qui nous est donnée, c'est la valeur de construction qui est donnée par le propriétaire. Donc, nous, il y a un dépôt qui est associé à chaque permis de construction basé sur la valeur de construction. Puis ce in-law suite-là a été évalué par le propriétaire à 500 000 $. Donc, c'est ça qui fait le changement, que oui, on en a eu moins, Mais ce sol-là, il a été de 500 000
Mais ça a bien baissé, parce que l'année passée, c'était de 8 millions, puis là, c'était rien que de...
C'est ça, c'est vraiment basé, les constructions varient d'un année à l'autre, puis le type de construction varie,
Ok.
puis la valeur aussi,
Ok.
selon la construction.
Celui, il y a 2 ans, comme, il y a 2 ans, il valait bien plus cher, mais il y en avait un, puis
C'est
qu'il y
qui
avait
a
les autres.
tout changé nos données au niveau. Fait que je me suis posé la même question, mais
Non,
c'est
parce
ça
que
qui expliquait
c'est rien que ça.
la différence.
Puis comme des choses comme ferme ou ces choses-là, ils tombent dans quelle catégorie?
Dans autre.
Ah, OK. Merci.
Parfait. D'autres questions? Moi, j'ai une question pour la page 4, le tableau. Juste clarifier, il y a... Ah, non, c'est le passé, je pense. C'est ça, continue. Le secteur vert, ça dit complete. C'est pas la construction est complète. C'est le building permit, il a été émis, c'est ça?
Donc, dans ce tableau-là, ce qu'on vous mentionne, c'est les site plans, donc les plans d'implantation.
OK.
Donc, quand on dit complete, c'est que le site plan a été signé.
OK, parfait. Je voulais juste clarifier ça, peut-être vous ajouter dans le futur site plan, just to make sure that we're not, somebody's looking at that saying, oh, that's complete, but it's not up yet. So, see. Other questions, comments? No? We'll move on to the next item. We now fall under 12. 12, reports from an investigator or the ombudsman. Item A, Integrity Commissioner Inquiry Annual Report 2019, received February 21st, 2020. That council receives for information purposes the annual report for 2019, received on February 21st, 2020, from Mr. John Saywell, the Integrity Commissioner for the Township of Russell. Questions? Councilor Sosi?
Yeah, so what, I know we had a bit of discussion on this before, but the one thing that concerned me was the, trouble with this word, anonymity of those who filed the complaint. And then it said the tendency is to, divulge the identity of the complainant for fairness to the respondent. And that's something that I feel it's a Freedom of Information Act, so that there should be disclosure of who filed the complaint, and I know we had this, discussion a little bit before, but I still, feel strongly about that. And, again, there's all these, things for the Integrity Commissioner, you know, for his mileage and all this stuff, but nothing for the person that's being charged. So, that was another question I had, like, for
Okay,
mileage
well,
or gas or.
In regards to this here, this is just his annual report being submitted to council for receiving.
But that,
We can't tell him what to write or,
Okay.
that's, correct me if I'm wrong, Madame Camille Laflamme, but we're just receiving this report. We have no impact into what the commissioner puts in this report, is that correct?
That's correct, Mr. Mayor.
Okay.
but we don't have to agree with the report.
Well, you could decide not to receive the report, but, I mean, that doesn't necessarily do anything. Conseiller Lorrain?
I think where Councilor Sosi would need to action is to bring back the bylaw and make changes to the bylaw that introduce the Integrity Commissioner and the, what's the other one, the Council Code of Conduct. I think that's where it's stated in there, so I think that's where you would have the ability to make any changes. This is just his report. We're
But
just
this is a
receiving.
change since his first initial report, because initially, when the bylaw went through initially, they did divulge, who the complaint was, and this is a change.
Well, this is a change in the sense that as the Integrity Commissioner, he's looking at past precedents, he's looking at other cases, and when he did the case here, that was his first case, that was his opinion, and after looking and speaking with other Integrity Commissioners and looking at other cases, I believe the report references cases in Quebec in regards to whistleblower legislation and protecting the person, the complainant. He's now saying that he can still, he's, in his report, he's going more to that side of things where he keeps it, but he has the ability to inform the person being complained on a one-on-one basis, not necessarily a public document.
So he could still divulge that information
To the person being,
To the complaint.
to the,
Yeah, to the
the
person being
person
complained.
complained about. So that's his call, that's his role, he decides whether he wants to or not. Monsieur Leduc?
that comes closer in line to the legal opinion we had received regarding the obligation to divulge. So our legal advisor had mentioned that that's the way it should have been done initially. He chose to go differently, which is, it's his own prerogative to do so. But now this is more reflective of what's the common practice regarding how to protect those who make claims on these bylaws. So he's more coming down mainstream where it's supposed to be, and he always has the power to do so, but now it's more, he had taken the position that he would develop everything, but now he's learned from other training and other cases that in case law maybe, he must refrain, he must protect also the identity of those making a complaint. So it comes very close to what our legal opinion was given to us initially.
Okay. Any other questions on the report? Again, in this case, we're just receiving the report, so.
Well, so we're not voting on it, like whether we're in favor of it? Because I'm not in favor of it.
You don't want to receive his report? Because you don't want to receive it, or you just don't like what's written in it?
Yeah, because having experienced this, I think it's a Freedom of Information Act, and I would want to know if somebody lodged a complaint on me, I'd like to know why and who. I don't want to be sitting there going, well,
Right, but
I don't know.
I think in this case, we're just receiving a report. We have no ability to change his report or change how he does his job. The Integrity Commissioner is fully independent of the influence of council. He makes investigations, he supports, he gives advice when council members ask, but members of council cannot tell him how to write a report or how to conduct an investigation. I think that's correct, Madam Deputy Lieutenant?
That's correct, Mr. Mayor. So we're just receiving, because this is for something already done in 2019. And if another complaint would happen, then it would be maybe different. That would depend on the Integrity Commissioner at that time.
And this, we're voting on this under resolutions item C, just so you're aware.
By itself.
By itself. So it's already listed. Conseiller?
And just to finish up on that point, I don't believe that council has the privilege of seeing any of the names of the people who complain against them, us, on the ombudsman side of things, correct?
That's correct.
So, I mean, we don't get to see who complains against us, yet when somebody complains against a member of council, we have the right to see it. I don't believe that that's the case.
Again, this report just, it clearly states it's up to the ombudsman, or the ombudsman, the IC, the Integrity Commissioner, how he decides to proceed. At this point in time, we'll be voting on this whether we receive it or not. Okay, we'll move on to the next item. Item 13, notice of motions. Item 14, question period on meeting of the day. If anybody has a question, please come up to the lectern, state your name, address for the record. I see no questions. We'll move on. Actually, let's take a 8-minute break. We'll be back at 7:15. Thank you very much. Welcome back, everybody. We'll move on to item 15, resolutions. Item A, LFPR, pilot project towards parity in Prescott Russell to encourage more women to advance in municipal politics, from the delegation of February 18, 2020. Whereas the Federation of Canadian Municipalities approved funding to the United Counties of Prescott Russell for the pilot project Voir la Parité dans Prescott Russell towards parity in Prescott Russell for the municipalities within their jurisdiction to promote the participation of women in municipal politics. And whereas a group of women with Prescott Russell established the movement Leadership Féminin Prescott Russell with the objective of increasing the presence of women within municipal councils and policy-making bodies. And whereas LFPR established a committee politico-féminin made up of elected officials from UCPR municipalities as advisors to the project and tasked to lead the project within the counties at large. And whereas Councillor Blank is willing to act as an advisor to this project, support this project, and promote it for the municipality of Russell, they resolve that the Township of Russell appoints Blank to represent the Township of Russell on this committee, and be it resolved that the Township of Russell supports LFPR and the UCPR in implementing the project Voir la Parité dans Prescott Russell towards parity in Prescott Russell for the municipalities within its jurisdiction. So I need a mover and a seconder to put it on the table. Oh, sorry. Be it finally resolved that a copy of this resolution be forwarded to LFPI. Need a mover and seconder to put it on the table. Moved by Conseiller Ternasty, seconded by Conseiller Brisson. At this point in time, we haven't appointed anybody. Is there anybody at council who's interested in sitting on this committee? I see none. Councilor Associate?
Comment. Oh, well, I said naturally, I'm the only woman here, but I also felt that anybody could sit on that committee and promote women to be in politics. I'm totally supportive of what they're doing. It's just, I'm also being selected to another committee tonight, and the number of committees that I'm on, I have to decline from accepting this. Like,
That's
nobody's
fine.
nominated me, but I mean, it's.
You're not nominating yourself.
I'm not nominating myself,
Okay.
thank you.
So I think maybe what's necessary in this case is that we just make an amendment to strike out those two sections that are looking for a nomination. And we just leave the last part, which is be it resolved that the township also supports it. So we support it, but we're just not appointing anybody to the committee. If everybody seems in agreement, I need a mover and a seconder to make that amendment. Moved by Conseiller Brisson, second by Councilor Ternasky. All those in favor of the amendment? Carried. Now we'll approve as amended. All those in favor? All those opposed? Carried. Now we're going into motion that council approve all recommendations listed on the agenda under item 11, reports from department and council committees. Puis il y a combien d'items qu'on sort, Madame Camille Laflamme?
I have noted for 11A,
Oui.
I,
Oui.
J,
Okay.
for the integrity commissioner because the two direction,
Oui.
and K.
And K. Okay, so need a mover and seconder to put on the table. Moved by Councilor Saucier, second by Conseiller Lorrain. We'll make the amendment to remove item A, I, J, and K. Need a mover and a seconder for that amendment. Moved by Conseiller Ternasky, seconded by Conseiller Brisson. All in favor, remember removing those 4 items? Carried. We'll vote on everything except those 4 items. All those in favor? All those opposed? Carried. So now let's go to item A. Oh, this is a fun one. The council remuneration bylaw. Motion that council approves bylaw 2020-014 for a second and third reading as listed on the agenda. Yeah, so let's put it on the table first. Need a mover and a seconder. Moved by Councilor Saucier, second by Conseiller Lorrain. So let's start having this discussion.
So we'll have to vote by section.
Yeah, we'll take one item at a time. You know, we've had numerous discussions on this. Let's remember that we're talking about attendance of meetings. We're not talking about the engagement at meetings or the competence. It's really, we're focusing on attendance in these options. So let me just bring it up here. So the first one was in regards to option 4.
Mr. Mayor, before we get into those ones.
Yep. Conseiller Lorrain, go ahead.
Sorry, just, because I know you did a bunch of cleanup, and it's just on the cleanup, there's just one, there's, under section 3, committee meetings. Since, if you look in the bylaws, there's the addition of those 2 other committees, and I'm assuming that they're advisory committees, that should they not be listed here as well, if the members of council are going to be assigned to those committees? Should we not just name them instead of leaving them under the ad hoc committees established? Because they're not really ad hoc committees, they're actually going to be committees of the council, right? So since it's open and we're doing it right now, should we add the seniors and the teen advisory committees to that list? So I'll make that amendment
Okay.
right now so that we have it.
Okay, so on peut faire ça tout de suite, Madame Camille Laflamme. So I need you wanna move that we add those two committees right away?
Yes, please.
So moved by Conseiller Lorrain, seconded by Councilor Ternasky. Any questions on discussion? No? All those in favor of that amendment? All those opposed? Carried. That amendment is made. Make it simple for our finance department.
Well,
Appreciate it.
All right. Okay, let's go to item 4, which is the attendance sheet. We have option 1, which is status quo. The clerk is her designate shall submit to the treasurer after each meeting an attendance sheet confirming the presence of each member. And then we have option 2, which was to add for a member of council to be considered present, she must be present over 50% of the duration of the meeting. Questions, comments in this regards? Councillor Tarnowski?
I'm just gonna say for the 50%, I agree that the principle is okay, but if there's a 10-minute meeting, it doesn't happen, but I'm worried about that 50%. You know, if you make it all the way here and you're having a meeting and it turns out that the meeting is very short, this particular one, the agenda's not much, oh, it's 50%, damn, I'm 2 minutes late. You know, I don't know. This, of course.
Okay, so you.
I'm okay with it if we have it, but I would prefer to leave it status quo, that's my opinion.
Okay, so we have Councillor Councillor Janoski is suggesting option 1, status quo.
Yes.
Anybody else in favor of status quo? Councillor, I seem to see everybody's fine for option 4, status quo. So I'll ask for a vote on status quo. All those
Yeah.
in,
Sorry, question though.
yeah?
So this is for attendance at council meetings, or this is attendance at committee meetings, or what is this attendance for? Like every meeting that we have of council?
I believe in this
I
case,
thought it was committee.
this is committee, because we're under the committee section.
That's where I was unclear, so.
Correct me if I'm wrong, Madame Cabinet Laflamme, are we talking about attendance at committee meetings?
Because committee meetings is under 3, this is section 4.
I assume committee meetings, or any meetings.
We can make an amendment to specify, Monsieur Leduc?
I think it's clear. When you say after each meeting, it means each meeting, so whatever committee, or council, or whatever it is. So
Okay.
at this point, we've always applied this as each meeting being every committee or everything else you have.
Okay, so this, the 50%, I think the discussion happened because we had experience in the last mandate where we had member of council who had trouble actually sitting here and being here for an entire meeting. I think that's why that part was raised. But if we want to leave it status quo or we want to add the 50%, either way, I'm fine. Status quo, everybody's fine with status quo? Okay, it's besoin un vote si ça reste pareil, Madame Camille Laflamme? No, okay. Well, next item is in regards to the penalty. We're looking at changing, council may authorize the absence. There is changes, just see, we're going from 5 to 3 regular council meetings, and the penalty is being increased from, for $100 for the mayor to $400, and from $50 to $200 for members of council. And it says, in order for the absence to be authorized by council, the member of council must make a written request either at the previous regular council meeting or at the next regular meeting of council following his or her absence. Council authorization will be done by resolution and shall not be unreasonably withheld. Questions, comments? Councillor Janoski?
My only point is that if we're allowing for a buffer for missing meetings, why are we also allowing for this extra missed meeting? So we're gonna be put in a position to vote on whether this was a good enough reason to this, or this wasn't a good enough reason to this. It kind of defeats the whole purpose. I would personally not have any options. We're putting in a buffer, and that buffer should address any missed meetings.
Okay, thank you. Just to be clear, I believe the Municipal Act allows that if you're going to be missing more than 3 months, council can authorize an absence. That makes sense. That doesn't change with our bylaw. No, so you're suggesting that it's that there was no, we don't, either you miss, that's it, that's all? Is that my understanding?
That's the point of putting that buffer there.
So you're fine with the buffer of the 3 days as opposed to the 5?
Ouais.
You're fine with the amounts? Mr. Godin, tu veux ajouter quelque chose?
Oui, merci, Monsieur Maire. I just want to clarify, so this afternoon I provided some adjusted wording for the clerk for option 2. I'm sorry? Non, moi je sais vous l'avez pas vu encore. Je vais clarifier par exemple, the intention of option 2 is that council does not authorize any absences. So it's that scenario where there's no authority from council to authorize it. So we're striking out without being authorized to do so by direction of council, because it's no longer applicable.
Yeah, exactly, that was my next point.
Also striking out the sentence beneath point B where it says that in order for the absence to be authorized, this isn't there either because it's not.
Okay, Councillor Associate and Councillor Leonard?
Okay, so I have a bit of an issue with that, just that for accentuating circumstances, even such as illness, death, or, if we approved, absence. So, if there are additional issues that might come up other than those 3 meetings, I think that, we should be able to, apply for, special leave or whatever.
I think.
I just thought we could add a clause, that there could be, because sometimes, like we said before, there could be unforeseen situations arise that just prevents you from being here.
Yep, yeah, and I think for example, that is available in the Municipal Act where council can give approval to miss more than 3 months if you're sick. We've seen it in other councils where a member of council has a heart attack or has cancer, council passes a resolution allowing for that, that person to be, go past that 3 months. That's in the Municipal Act, we're allowed to do that. In regards to the 5 or the 3 meetings, realistically, we have scheduled meetings, we have 23, 24 a year. Do we want to leave it at 5 meetings where essentially you're saying it's okay to miss 20% of the meetings? I'm not sure how we would react if staff were missing 20% of their.
I'm not suggesting that we add, I'm just suggesting that things may arise that we would have to look at it. That someone's missing more than those 3 meetings and that, there's an unforeseen, event that arose. Child could be ill, something like that.
Yep. Councillor Larry?
Before I speak, just a quick point of clarification. You weren't asking whether or not Councillor Associate wanted to add 2 more to that list with the 5. We are currently at 5, and it's currently being requested to reduce to 3.
Yeah,
So
2
she's
more
asking.
than what's in this report. That's what
Right.
That's what I'm
But
referencing.
right now, it is 5.
It is 5, yes.
So we're not.
But
she's
the
not
recommendation
asking
is
to-
going down to 3.
Right, but she's not asking to go more than what we currently have.
No, more than what's recommended.
Okay, I want to make sure that was clear. I definitely think there should be something in there that allows for extenuating circumstances. Somebody may miss 3 meetings throughout a calendar year, and then all of a sudden something happens towards the end of the year, and maybe the clause says there, after you've missed 3, you would need a request from council to deem it as unauthorized, because I think right now it says, if you miss 3 without being authorized to do so, I think you get your 3. If once you miss 3, then it would trigger the
Penalty.
it triggers the penalty. The 4th one triggers the penalty. However, the 4th one also triggers the written request to council should there be valuable
A reason why. A justifiable
a
reason.
justifiable reason for missing. I don't know what the answer is there, but I mean, the first 3, fine, that's whatever they are, but I mean, there could definitely be circumstances where it's a one-off situation for that specific item, and then whether or not it's justifiable. I'd hate to see somebody have to, give up $200 or $400 in the case of somebody
Yeah.
passing away and they have to travel because they've missed 3 meetings throughout the year for work obligations or being sick. I think that would be without remedy, because right now if we remove that, there is no remedy for council or for staff to do anything for that member. And I think that there has to be some sort of leeway there to allow for the member in question to seek something from council, so.
Right, so currently the way it's written right now, Should a member of council miss more than 5 regular council meetings in a calendar year without being authorized to do so by direction of council, then the following penalties apply. So the way it's written, besides changing the amounts and from 5 to 3, that allows council to give that authorization. Correct? So right now, it would just be a matter of a council member asking for authorization if ever we got to the point where it's 3 or 5 or whatever, or 4 or 6.
Well, that suggests to me, correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Leduc, that if I was gonna miss a meeting and I thought it was justifiable, I could go, even whether it's my first one, I could go to council and ask for that to be an authorized leave.
Right. Yeah.
Is that, without having reached the maximum amount, is that accurate?
Yeah.
Okay, well then you can strike out the bottom piece then if that's the case.
So we could just say the first one, which is status quo, but just changing the 5 to 3 in the amounts that are being adjusted. Councillor Tomasky?
I just want to be clear, so you're going to be asking me as a counselor to make a decision if a reason is valid or not, and without listing the thousands of possible reasons. Last minute toothache, I can't make it. So I just want to be clear, that's what we're asking right now.
That's what's currently in place, but yeah, it is a valid point. It's something, do we want to change that? Because technically right now, yeah, that's the way it's written. Conseil d'arrêt?
Well, I mean, we're monitoring ourselves at this point in time, so I don't, it's not that you're being asked to vote on it. Yeah, you are being asked to vote on it, because you're also being asked to implement penalties on council that penalties are already in place, so, to me, I agree with you. There shouldn't be a list of things that has to be justifiable. And to me, there shouldn't be a list of amount of council meetings and penalties in place, because that's already done under the municipal act, and you're justifiable to the members of the public, so that's,
I think we'll never find something that's perfect for everybody. I think the reality is that, I could miss 3 meetings because I decide to go on vacation, and then the 4th one comes up and I'm sick that day. Is that justifiable? Well, I made the choice to go on vacation. I would expect that, no, that's not, I shouldn't be getting a freebie on the 4th one because I'm sick that one time, but I chose to use the other 3 as vacation time, right? I think it's up to every individual member how he treats those requests, but, I think it's transparency as well, is that, a member of council, after missing so many meetings, decide if he's asking for an exemption to the bylaw, he comes before council and the public and asks, and council makes a decision whether they approve it or not. So, right now, I guess I'll look for the first one. Are we okay from going from 5 to 3? Let's break this down. Majority? No, okay, so we have majority for 5 to 3. Are we okay from going to 100 and 450 to 200? Okay, we have majority on that one. And then authorizations or not. Those looking for, as it stands right now, they have to come for authorization. So right now, if we change to 3, at the 4th time, council member chooses whether they want to come for authorization or not. As it's written right now, that's status quo. So are we looking to stay for status quo, or we want to make a change to that? You'd like to propose change, are you okay with status quo? I'm fine with status quo?
Status quo.
Status quo, so majority status quo. So this was my.
I think each one we need to vote on, each piece of that.
Mr. Leduc?
To be clear, status quo on,
The wording, on change le 5 à 3,
ça c'est correct, ça.
puis on change les dollar signs. Il n'y a rien d'autre de changé dans la section.
Okay.
So the blue section that's there is not being inserted. It's what was there, what is in the bylaw as it stands today.
So then you're looking at option 2.
Yes.
Ben, c'est à cause, option 2, you say council may not authorize absence, but that's not the case. Should a member of council miss more than 3 regular council meetings in calendar year without being authorized to do so by the direction of council? So c'est juste the wording in green is wrong because the bylaw allows the authorization. But essentially, yes, it
So
would be.
It's one without the, I added the paragraph because I was asking myself a question about being authorized to do so by council. So would council want to see an explanation or request, a record of those requests? If you don't do that in writing, then where does it go? You may, last time you had discussed, maybe you don't agree with the last sentence, which is council will be, authorization will be given without being unreasonable. Last time you maybe hinted that first line could stay, but then remove the second line, so council has full power of deciding yes or no. So those are the options you have regarding
Well, I think-
clarify or not how the process. But if you don't want anything, well, then we don't know how it's gonna be asked and to whom.
Well, it has to be approved by council as a whole. So
Right.
the councillor would have to bring it up to council under council member items, for example, requesting council to to pass a resolution allowing for that absence, whether it's justified or not.
It doesn't say though by resolution. Like, how
To do so by-
does somebody bring it up? Because it just says, without being authorized to do so by direction of council.
Right.
Doesn't say resolution of council.
Well, how does council give direction?
We give
pass a-
verbal direction.
We give verbal direction, but we're looking for an action in this case.
Right, so let's clarify what that action is and how members of council need to put that in.
So we can change then, a year being authorized to do so by resolution of council instead of direction of council.
The utilization of council member items, like something to that effect where a council member knows how to actually submit a written request.
Yeah, it's,
The blue states, in order for the absence to be authorized by council, the member of council must make a written request either at the previous regular council meeting or at the next regular council meeting following his or her absence. Council's authorization will be done by resolution and shall not unreasonably be withheld.
And you can put there, regular council meeting under council members' items, right? And then that way there, the council member of the day knows where they have to put that where they have to put that request.
Yeah. So the only adjustment I will make to this is that, get my notes here. It should be a member of council, not the member himself. Because, for example, a member of council has a heart attack and is unable to come for 3 months. Another member of council should be able to make that request on his behalf.
I don't think we're talking about that here, though. Like that, the request for leave, I don't think falls under here. I think that falls under the Municipal Act. Correct me if I'm wrong, I thought we were talking about just absences of meeting, like individual absences of meetings throughout the year. That's, I wasn't encompassing a leave of absence here. I know where you're going with
I
it.
just want to make sure that we don't find ourselves in a situation where, because, for example, I know recently in the city of Ottawa, you know, it was,
Council withheld a leave request, and they gave leave requests for others.
but I just want to make sure, if I remember well, that leave request was done remotely. I just want to make sure if we have something in writing here that allows that request. That's why I said, instead of the member, I'm just specifying a member of council.
Yeah, I think that makes
Which
sense.
could be the member themselves.
Yes,
It could
exactly.
be himself and
Yeah.
it could be.
I just don't want to find a situation where
Yeah,
somebody's
that's
sick.
fine. I just, I wasn't even considering the leave request here because I thought it would fall under under the Municipal Act, not under this bylaw, so. But if that's the case, I'm fine with that.
But, for example, right, you have a heart attack, maybe you're not gone 3 months, but maybe you're gone 2 months. You don't, through the Municipal Act, you don't need that leave of absence, but, you know, we want to make sure that the member of council is still covered for it. So, conseiller associé.
I just had a question on the penalty rate. Like, why isn't it the same as the remuneration rate? We're going, and also I have a question on the remuneration rate. Why are we going from 50 to 105? Like, where did we come up with that? And then if we miss a meeting, we're not docked 105, we're docked 200.
Okay, so the 105 that was discussed previously, that's for the committee meetings,
Yeah.
okay? The penalty is in regards to regular council meetings.
Okay, all right.
So,
It's not the same.
so let's leave the,
That's not confusing.
So on va laisser la section bleue, Monsieur Leduc, Madame Camille Laflamme, and we'll just add a line at the end says through council member items. Monsieur Leduc?
I would suggest to you that, in the second line, when you say must make a request under section,
I don't wanna specify number 18, because if we change the order of the agenda, then it screws all this up.
but you just say under a member of the council items.
Yeah, council,
Just add it there,
okay.
and then you'll still need to discuss, you still want the last sentence.
The one that says, council's authorization will be done by resolution, shall not be unreasonably withheld. I think that's a fair statement, right? Okay, so we have majority for the first two changes. The last one, adding the blue with that change, is everybody okay with that? So we'll vote on option one as discussed with the, so it's
Number six
option.
now?
Eh?
Number 6 now?
Number 6, penalty,
Yeah.
option 1, everything is good, and we're adding this section for member requests.
You gonna register your vote?
Yep, like a registered vote. So all those in favor? All those opposed? Okay, so it'll pass.
I didn't have a mover and seconder.
Oh, sorry, moved by Conseiller Brisson, seconded by Conseiller Associé.
Okay. 5-3 and the dollar.
Yeah, so now we're going on to item 7, which is the additional meetings. So now we have, option 1, was his enumeration for council meetings after number 28. Option 2 is after number 28, or 28 and over with a 2-hour minimum. And option 3 is no additional remuneration for extra council meetings. So comments, questions, Conseiller Larrain?
I'll make this comment up front and then you guys can debate the rest of it. I was going to choose option 3 here because I don't feel that we should be paid any additional amounts of money, and if we were looking for additional amounts of money, we should just put it in our actual council remuneration. However, seeing as though it looks like the other section has been passed, and if I'm going to be docked amounts, if I miss more than a certain amount of meetings as a counselor, then there'll be an offset there, then I'll be in favor of option number 1.
Okay, option number 1, other comments, questions? Councillor Kanoski?
Could we just discuss the option 1 paid or option 1, or option 2 minimum 2 hours? Any comments on that? I'm kind of relatively open to either or, it doesn't matter to me.
Okay, well, the difference is 2-hour minimum. We've had instances where there's it's a 5-minute meeting, 10-minute meeting, 15, 20-minute meeting. Do we wanna get paid for those? I consider, personally, I would be fine with option 3. But if we go with, number 2, out of 2 and 1, I would be leaning towards 2, personally. Conseiller Brisson?
I would say the same because, like, you don't want to count, you don't have much preparation if it's a real short meeting of 10 minutes. So that's why the minimum of 2 hours is the minimum I could go. And so I have no problem with 3, but if 2 goes, I have no problem.
Okay. Conseiller Larrain?
I don't see the difference between showing up for a council meeting, a regular council meeting that lasts 15, 20 minutes, if that was the case, than to come in for a special meeting of council that lasts 15, 20 minutes. I mean, it's the same amount of time that I have to get here. I'd still have to get off work if I was working. There's still the same accommodations that have to be made than for a regular council meeting. So I don't see what the time factor is. You gotta show up, you gotta show up. So if you don't show up, you don't get paid, then we need to use the same justification here. So I don't see how number 2 fits in, for me anyway. I would say option number one.
Okay, Councillor Solce, thoughts?
Option one.
Okay, so let's do this one by one, registered vote. I need a mover and seconder to put option one on the table, moved by Councillor Tonoski, second by Conseiller Brisson. All those in favor of option one? All those opposed? Carried. So option one it is.
Just flying through these.
Yeah.
Item 14. Reimbursement of expenses. So now we're looking to add the pink part was just brought over from another section, Monsieur Leduc, correct? Excuse me, Monsieur Godin, the pink was just brought in from another section, so that's fine.
That's correct.
So now we're looking between option one, option two, and option three. So option one,
Sorry, before we move on,
Councilor Ray?
yeah, I brought this up at the last meeting about this section for item, what would be here, 14B1. And I just want clarification on who decides what what is considered municipal business and what is not considered municipal business. Because we had the same discussion last time, and me and you both had two different interpretations of municipal business. So I'm just trying to understand whose discretion is being used for determining municipal business.
Okay. In this case, if I'm expected to sign off on it, I guess it would be the mayor's position that decides whether if he's authorizing through his signature, whether he's considers something municipal business or not. Councillor Tarnowski?
Correct me if I'm wrong, but if we do that, there's always a recourse if, for example, there's a disagreement to bring it to council.
That's correct. If ever the mayor's position decides not to sign off on something, a member of council can always bring it up to the council table and make the case, and then it could be authorized by council as a whole if they choose to approve that expense.
I'm okay.
Councillor Lade?
Then I think we need to add the section that is under under 17 as well, where it says, as duly authorized by the mayor's signature, because then it's clear as to who's determining that, or their designate, or whatever that clause would be. I think we need to add that there.
So under,
It's there on 17, but
Well, it used to be under a different section, so I don't know which section it was under. We're under 14 right now.
so Monsieur Leduc, Monsieur Godin?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. So the change that was brought here, with the addition of the exclusions here, it's, we eliminated section, which was section 16 before. So we had a list of eligible expenses, and then we had a list of ineligible expenses. So we found that a bit confusing. So like, what if an expense doesn't fall into either of those? Is it eligible or not? So what we did is we eliminated the exclusions portion and brought it into the eligible expenses where they apply to. The question of authorizing, so that is section 17, so that's still there, and there is an option A and option B based on the discussions that were held last time regarding is the mayor authorizing or is he just signing it? So there will be debate on that at the next section, but
So you're suggesting we don't necessarily have to add that clause added in number 14 because it really is repeating what's in number 17?
I mean, if we're looking for clarification, it could always be added here, but at the end of the day, in section 17 where we say who authorizes it, I think that it will be that person's or that.
That's sufficient.
So it's not just the expenses immediately above it, it's the entire listing of expenses under 17?
That's correct.
that's what.
Okay, well then if it's under there, then that's.
That's fine.
I didn't realize that it was, each item was identified like that, so.
I think it was removed. Those items were removed. The enumeration of items were removed, that you were saying in 17.
Mr. Godin?
So that
No, section 17 is still there. What was removed from section 16 and it was brought into section 14. And section 17 is the authorization of claims, so it's basically the whole list of expenses.
Okay, Professor, we're okay with that?
back to 14.
Okay, so now we're looking at the three clauses for the reimbursement of expenses. The clause for additional allowable use of $700 of discretionary budget. We're also looking, right,
20% or 700.
option 2 is the 20%. And then, just for clarification, 20% of our entire budget,
That's 700.
It's 20% of the discretionary budget.
which
is
include,
about 700.
right, because we have, usually normally there's like 2,000 and 1,500. We have, a counselor has $3,500 total, which is 20% is the 700. I just wanna make sure. Well-
Specifically,
Yeah, but that number, sorry, can I,
we'll change it.
Conseiller Larry?
the reason that I wrote it that way was so that council has the discretion to either set a dollar amount, regardless of whether the discretionary budget goes up or down throughout the terms of council. Because when I first started on council, it was 5,000. So slowly it's gone down, it's gone up, it's gone down. Or it's a straight percentage, so it doesn't, so you still get the same percentage as you go up and down. And I picked the 720 so that it was a comparable number. It could have been 510. I just picked some numbers and said, let's discuss it. To me, I think number 2 with the percentage is a better number, but that's just me. I'm open to either option 1 or option 2.
Counselor Associate?
I just had a question on the entertainment expenses. So it says it's not related to municipal business, so I would use the example of, oh my God, I just drew a blank on his name, when we had a fundraiser with,
Andre Philippe Gagnon?
thank you, merci. I just drew a blank on his name. And so that was entertainment in a sense,
Yeah.
but
That was a sponsorship.
so.
We sponsored a table at that event.
Okay. So if, again, if people were attending that, would they be able to claim that or not?
As a sponsorship, we did claim that. At that point in time, it was claimed out of our discretionary budgets. Monsieur
You're
Godin?
gonna clarify for me?
Yeah, through Mr. Mayor. Yeah, so just to clarify, so what's written down here is, the following are not eligible for reimbursement. It says entertainment expenses and transportation costs which are non-related to municipal business. So if it's an entertainment cost that is related to municipal business, then it would be eligible.
So for example, if he came and it wasn't a fundraiser for the municipality,
Right.
then, and it's
Yes.
just for
Okay.
whatever, then
just
that would be
wanted to-
covered, but, okay.
It's clear.
Conseiller Larry?
Since we are back in that section, I'd like clarification. Never mind, I won't ask it. I'll go back to the others.
Okay.
Are we done with that section now? We go back to the section,
So we're at the 700, the 20%, or the
Yes.
status quo. So do we have comments from members of council? Councilor Kanoski, Conseiller Brisson.
I'm very flexible on this one. My only thought was, there was a comment made earlier on about any donation should be a donation from the township, even though we're directing it, from our discretionary amount, it should be recognized as a donation from the township, because it is taxpayer money.
Conseiller Larry?
so the reason, and I spoke to Monsieur Leduc, and I think me, Monsieur Leduc, and Monsieur Godin spent some time on this, and that's how come you got the extra wording in there for, the request being denied by council, in an election year, you don't want somebody, as the mayor had stated, you don't want somebody taking their entire budget and doing stuff, which is why there's limitations. One of the issues that came to me was, what happens if you wanna buy a $100 gift to put for a silent auction at some event that's coming up? And all of a sudden it's by all of council. But I don't agree with what they're raising money for. Now I've got my name attached.
I said township, I didn't say council.
Well, it's still coming out of it's coming out of my discretionary budget, and I don't agree with it.
No, let's be
It would
clear.
come out of my discretionary budget, but it would be on behalf of township.
Like, for
As
example,
opposed to on behalf of Mike Turowski, council.
so for example, when I
If you give
sponsor for a golf tournament,
Yeah.
The sign is Township of Russell. It's not Mayor Pierre Leroux that's donating, it's the Township of Russell.
Right.
So for example, but for.
That doesn't come out of your discretionary budget.
Yes, it does.
That's why I was trying
The,
to change it.
the golf sponsorships have been coming out of, the mayor's budget for,
I had no idea that the sponsor would come out of your budget.
yeah.
Mais c'est pour ça que j'avais
And that's why I felt that it wasn't, I should not be the one who's saying it's from Pierre Leroux, it's coming from council. But in the example Councillor Tarnowski, you're mentioning, if Councillor Tarnowski decided to authorize a donation of $100 and it's coming from all of council, he's looking for the wording all of council, but it's not $20 each that we're going to be charged. It's still it's still from his discretionary budget. However, it's from all of council or the township. So even though you're not in favor of that, it's not coming out of your discretionary budget.
I still don't see I still don't see the
What's the issue? Sorry if I.
the reason behind it. It's coming out of one person's discretionary budget. Why isn't it not from that person? You're going to the event, you're supporting that event as a counselor. If you look in other municipalities, they have similar things like that. Look at Ottawa, they got their budgets. Look at other municipalities around. There's stuff that comes out of your budget. If I can't spend $700 of taxpayer money responsibly and reasonably, then I shouldn't be sitting here. It's not all of council that's looking to do that. It's me that's looking to support that event. So at that point in time, it's me that actually put the work in to do it. I should be the one that's putting in that item as Councillor Lauren, supporting that local event. So that's where I fall on it. Any other wording on it, I think is not right.
Okay. Conseiller Brisson?
Parce que moi, je supporte comme le conseiller Tarnowski parce que justement, oui, c'est de l'argent qui vient de notre budget discrétionnel, mais c'est de l'argent du conseil. Ça fait que c'est pour ça que moi je supporte comme je parais aller pour le pourcentage, là, que si ça varie, mais que ça soit mis au nom du conseil, comme que tu as donné l'exemple avec les tournois de golf, que c'est pas marqué ça vient du maire ou que ça vient d'un tel, c'est la municipalité, mais oui, on a été chercher de notre chose, puis on a une limite qu'on ne dépense pas le 5 000 $ tout dessus, ça, on voudrait, mais que ça soit mis au nom de la municipalité.
I think there also has to be, some kind of control in place.
Ouais, ça, c'est-
You know, in regards to, I go out, I buy a donation, and I give it to an organization, and but the receipt is coming before for a signature. Well, you gave me the receipt for the item, there has to be something attached to it to say that it was actually handed out. There has to be checks and balances. For example, when we have requests for donation for a golf tournament, well, I have a printout and it's a check that's issued, that's sent to the organization. There's a check and balance. I just want to make sure that we have something in place where when somebody is submitting a receipt, that the organization actually got that. Because it's I'm not saying it's an issue here, but there are potential there. I'm sure our accountants would look at this and say, how did the township make sure that this item that was bought for auction actually made it to where it was supposed to go? So I think there needs to be a check and balance in there. How it's worded, I'm not sure. But
I don't disagree, and I think a template letter could be drafted and put on file and sent to every member of council saying, on letterhead of the township, saying, by signing this, you are acknowledging receipt of,
whatever you like.
a supported item from a local event from a member of council. Please sign here, member of council signs it, and it's handed off. I have no problem if that's something that needs to be done. I don't think any organization would feel bad if just the organizing committee signs off on it
Yeah.
and whatnot. I don't have any issue with that if we need to add something to this, or if it's just a direction that's how we do it.
I think that would raise an opportunity to address another concern. On that same sheet, there could be a section, the organization is acknowledging that the donation will be registered from the township and not an individual councillor, if we wanted to put that in play. Conseiller Brisson?
Ben, là, j'ai tout de même mal l'idée tout à l'heure en disant l'option 2, là, parce que vraiment, toute levée de fonds, ou tout événement, ils peuvent venir au Community Grant. Fait que c'est pour ça que je prenais plus l'option 3, mais que j'aimerais bien que s'il arrive, puis que dans le budget du Community Grant, là, il manque de l'argent, surtout comme à la fin de l'année, là, que tu peux dire, ben, par la recommandation, c'est de le refuser parce qu'on n'a pas d'argent, que là, tu pourrais dire, ben, moi, j'en ai encore dans mon budget discrétionnel, puis que c'est approuvé par le conseil, vous pouvez le prendre de mon budget discrétionnel.
C'est une suggestion, Conseiller Larin?
Under the bylaw as drafted, you'd never be allowed to do that, and that's exactly what I got crucified for in this meeting previously. So, I don't disagree with what you're saying, but it doesn't allow it now, which is why I put in a thing here to allow us to support local events. And it shouldn't be under community grants, to be honest with you. But, you know, we put it here. And you know what, I mean, people want to see that members of council are out there and doing stuff, and I think this is a perfect opportunity to show that you are involved in the community, and you go out there and support these local events.
But just to be clear, members of council do that right now. The difference is we're doing that, whether we're doing it with our money or we're doing it with taxpayers' money. I think that's the difference right now.
And again, if I can't spend $700 reasonably, what am I doing here?
Conseiller Brisson, Conseiller Tonaski, Conseiller associé.
Bon, parce que, comme on dit, le 10 ans de l'amener au conseil, c'est que là, c'est. Parce qu'autrement, l'autre option qui pourrait arriver, si on a complètement carte blanche avec le 700 $, ben, ça peut être mis au nom de la municipalité, mais que c'est de quoi que le conseil ne supporte pas pantoute dessus.
Ben,
Non, pas de, ça a passé, mais c'est pour ça que je dis, s'il faudrait que ça vienne au Community Grant, il faut passer avant pour que ça soit accepté au conseil. Parce que, autrement, si tu prends juste 700 $, de la manière que c'est marqué là, tu peux arriver et dire, oh, ben, j'ai une activité X-Quo, ça représente la municipalité, mais c'est complètement contre qu'est-ce que les autres conseillers.
The loophole is potentially there where somebody might think, I won't go to council because chances are council won't approve it, but I'll go see an individual council member so I can get that funding from whatever percentage we give.
But they can't give cash.
Si on
They can only, and if it's an in-kind, I would assume that the member of council will say, if it's an in-kind donation, go to community grants, right? Unless it's a walking pass or something like that you're donating as part of this to an event, then it doesn't have to, then you're not giving them, you know, a monthly pass or whatever it is, $20 or $50 or $100. It'll come from your pass into the revenue line of that thing. So there's no actual things that changes hand except for, you know, you make up a certificate that says this allows for the bearer of this certificate is entitled to a 1-year membership to the walking path at the sports dome. And you submit the request to finance, and then they make the adjustment. So I don't see how we're.
So maybe there's a compromise to be made here. Maybe it's each member of council has 5 yearly passes that they're able to give out to an organization for a charity, and that they have to go through the Parks and Rec department, and a member of council just has to authorize it. Say, yes, I'm authorizing this pass be given to this organization for this event, and that's it. And we each have 5. There's no, it goes through a department, so it's traceable. It's just a matter of putting them in contact with Parks and Rec and us approving it. That's it. That's all. There's 5 passes. In regards to not lose, the price of a yearly membership is about $100, roughly. 75 plus taxes and this and that, so 5. So it's roughly $500 each. We each have 5 events that we can support a year, and it takes away a lot of the questions that we're discussing. Councillor Janoski? then Councillor Sotu, then Conseiller Lorraine and Brisson.
Can we give an hour of ice time instead?
Okay?
Can we give an hour of ice time
Yes,
instead?
so
Well,
c'est
the,
mon point.
well, the dome, the walking passes, because there's no additional cost to the municipality. If we're talking about ice time, then yeah, there starts being additional costs, so it kind of, I would suggest that we stick with the walking pass. Councillor Associate?
I totally agree with what you just presented there, but I also, you know, just in thinking, I'm sort of feeling now that I agree with Councillor Laurent in that if you're giving it on behalf of Russell Township instead of individually, because there could be, thinking of myself, I'll use a silly example, but say there's a tree cutting event.
You're not being silly, I was just about to say that, so.
Yeah, I'm not gonna want my name on that, you know, so that it's donated from the entire council or township. So I might, you know, I would prefer, if I'm gonna make a donation, it's on my behalf for a certain event.
Okay, so then, that's fine. We each
Yeah.
have 5 items, we give it out
Yeah.
as a councilor member item, we're supporting the township, we're encouraging people to go to the sports dome, healthy living.
Yeah.
I'd be fine with that. Conseiller Laurent?
So to be clear, it's a set number of passes per council member. If they donate that for that event, it's under their name, not council, not township. Is that clear so far?
Yep.
That's my understanding. Now, the other part to that is can we find out exactly how much it is? I had it up on my phone a few minutes ago. And I'm only doing, and I'll tell you why in a second. I'll have it right here, never mind. So a yearly pass for an adult 18 plus is $100, and I'm assuming that's plus tax.
Is it looking because you're trying to get to that 700 target? or-
No, I'm not looking at the 700. I'm more looking at, if you're gonna donate one, you should probably be donating 2. It's family, you know, or it's spouses, or it's something for somebody to get one pass, kind of doesn't.
Well, I think that's the point, right? You give one pass hoping that they'll go with their spouse, and you get their spouse to buy a pass, so it's really a 2-for-1 for them. You know,
At the
and
end of the day,
chances.
if you're saying 5, it doesn't matter.
Yeah, like I'm just throwing 5 out there. It's a nice simple number. If you want to put 4 or 6, or at the end of the day, I think most of these items will be given out as a charity where somebody gets to bid or they win. So if
Is
they're
it 100? Is it 100 plus tax?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna suggest 6 then, so if I needed to, I can give 2 out at once. And if they want 2 individuals, then they can do 2 individuals, but it's together and 2 certificates.
Conseiller Brisson?
Moi, j'ai un peu de problème de dire juste une walking pass, parce que là, tu dis, ben, il y a certains groupes que c'est tout bien du temps de glace qui aurait besoin qu'on sponsor, ça serait tout bien une salle, ça serait tout bien.
Then vote in favor of 1.
Hein?
Like, you can't have it both ways, Andre.
No, but that's why I'm saying I'm not for the 5 neither, but I'm saying that it should, that's why I'm coming back.
But you're looking to give it away as a cash, a value, to say, oh, we'll take it off an hour of ice time, or take it off S Hall.
That's why I'm bringing back option 3, and that if we want to give something, we say to the organization, just bring it to the community grant.
Yeah, but I think realistically, are we going to have organizations coming here for a donation for a hockey tournament?
It doesn't fit. It doesn't fit in the community grants today. You'd have to bring amendments to the community grants, and it would open the door wide open. This allows for individual members of council to make a discretionary decision, which is what we're voted in to do, make decisions, and it's 20% of our discretionary budget. It's $700.
So, just for clarification, Monsieur Leduc, Monsieur Ledin, in the budget, we have a line item for our discretionary budget, and there's a portion that's for our cell phones. It's split in 2, correct?
Through Ms. Mayor. So basically you have a total of 3,600 bucks.
Right.
it's not, there's not a portion that's dedicated to communications or other things, but on the communication side, if your cell phone bill, per month is more than $75, then that extra goes onto your discretionary fund. But you don't need to use it for that, you can use it for.
So how complicated would it be to say, okay, it's $3,600, for example, take $600, you have $3,000 for discretionary budgets, $600 for donation, and the 6 walking pass, and that $600 is, we're essentially paying those walking passes, reimbursing the Parks and Rec department. Is that complicated?
No.
Not at all. Okay. Councillor Tarnowski?
And the issue with that approach now is that it's no longer discretionary if it's being taken away, the 600 specifically for with those. So if I choose not to give any, for example, because nobody's asked me, now I'm tied into that, so.
Well, you always have the option, if you go through your $3,000, you decide to go to a convention or whatever, and you have that 600, you can always make that request to transfer that 600 back to your discretionary budget. So that 600 would be flexible.
So you're just guaranteeing $1,800 more, sorry, that I think, $3,000 more into the revenues for the donor.
If council members decide to give that $600, yeah, it's taken out of our account and it's going into the
But
revenue.
you're telling me on one part that it's good value because it really doesn't cost anything, but then we're still gonna be charged for it.
Well, if we were buying gifts,
So we did a vote,
we buy gifts, we'd be charged anyways.
then we would be charged.
But I can't support a local business in that sense at that point in time, which is what the $700 or the 20% allows me to do.
So only
It allows me to
if-
support local business at the same time as supporting a local event. I don't see where the problem is with
So-
giving ourselves discretion to do something.
Mr. Nidzer?
So the way it's written right now, council has 3635, 3,635 per year. The way it's written here, it says you will be able to use 700 or 20%, whatever option you choose. So if a member of council may decide not to use any of that money and use the full amount, 3635, to go to conference, take courses, or whatever. They're not forced, or we're not reducing from 36 to 2935 of the discretionary. We're not doing that. We're just saying you'll be able to do that if you wish to do that. So we're not taking anything away, it's just giving more flexibility to council members.
I would be fine with option 1 or 2 if it specified that it was a dome walking pass. But just letting discretionary to buy anything, I think that's where my issue is. But no, let's call for the vote. If we're ready to vote, then I'm fine calling for the vote. Last comments, Councillor Tarnowski, Conseiller Direct.
We just agreed to increasing renovation budget from 10,000 to 60,000. Not to say that it's not worth it, it took us 2 seconds, but we're arguing here over $3,500 for this one. I'm ready for a vote.
Okay, Councillor Direct.
My only comment is if you can't yourself justify this to somebody, then you shouldn't be making the purchase. If I can justify this to a resident on the street that comes up to me and asks me about it, then I don't see a problem with it. That's why I suggested it in the first place. So to me, it's justification. You're doing your job as a councillor, supporting local events, local businesses. You're being out. To me, it's just I can justify every single penny that I would spend if I spent any of it to anybody in front of me. So I'm okay with option 1. Or sorry, option 2.
I'm bringing option 2 on the table now.
Okay,
I'm bringing that motion for option 2.
okay, recorded vote. All those in favor of option 2? All those opposed? Carried.
And who was the
Moved by Councillor Brisson, seconded by Councillor Tarnowski. Je pense que c'était tous les changements. Non, il y en avait un autre. Il dit claim authorization. I think, I'll just throw it out there, I think it should just be status quo. At the end of the day, if I have to sign it, and I don't agree with it, it doesn't matter, it's coming to council table, so.
Just one comment.
Yeah, Conseiller Lorrain?
I'm okay with status quo as long as the understanding is that the mayor will not unreasonably withhold approval based on opinion versus what's in the actual document. Like, if it's something in the document, the mayor can't not approve it. Or can't, you know what I mean? Like, he's gotta approve it if it's in the document.
Right.
So if you disagree with the purchase that, an example only, I'm not saying that I would, but you disagree with the purchase that I made for an event, you still have to approve it based on the fact that it was under the $700.
Right, but I still have the option of always, I can approve it and bring it up to council discussion to say, hey, I signed this because the bylaw states this, I think council should relook at this bylaw because it doesn't make sense in my opinion. That's always an option there as well.
I just wanted to make sure that I'm fine with status quo.
Councilor Tarnowski?
I just wrote notes, so I don't have the exact, which one was the wording, but I would propose the one that authorizes the mayor to approve, if not, then it's up to council. So rather than the status quo simply means that regardless of whether
So-
you approve or not.
So
you
the
get
status quo
reimbursed.
is, the above expenditures will be reimbursed to the claimant only after the claim is duly authorized by either the mayor or his
Okay, well,
designate during his absence. If none of the above signatories authorize the expenditures by providing their signature, then the expenditure will be referred to council for approval.
Okay, status quo, sorry.
Okay? Everybody okay with status quo? We don't need a vote on that, it's status quo. Okay, that was number A. I think we had some more. Okay, the next one was item I, which was the user fee correction for last minute ice rentals. I need a mover and a seconder to put on the table. Moved by Councilor Tarnowski, seconded by Conseiller Brisson. Conseiller Lorrain?
Sorry, I just had a procedural question. So that was the resolution, we did each by each, then we have to do the bylaw after,
Le bylaw va venir après, yeah, in the bylaw section.
and it'll be what, as amended?
Madame Camille Laclan?
For the remuneration?
Yes.
We can say as directed in the resolution
directed.
as amended.
I just didn't wanna have to go through the whole thing again.
No.
Try to avoid that.
You're not the only one.
Okay, so item I is on the table. Any questions in regards to item I?
Which one is that, I'm sorry.
That's the ice
The ice
rental.
rental.
Councilor Tarnowski?
Just there was comments raised about the tax in, tax out. I think everyone's used to paying tax, so I'm happy with the pricing the way it is. I like the.
With what's presented?
Yeah.
Okay, so Conseiller Lorrain, did you want to make an amendment?
Well, before I go and make an amendment, are the three of you that are fine with it that way? Cause then I'll make a comment about something else.
I'm fine with the way it is.
Your comment was to put it at $100.
Even?
Is just to leave that $100 and it's taxes in, fees in and everything, just so that it's a round number. You don't have to worry about it, everyone knows it's $100 and,
And right now it's what, 90?
well, it's 94 plus
Plus
tax
tax.
comes to what, 113?
106?
113, and then in a month, it's gonna go up again to 120, 119 and change. I mean, it would have been in place for 1 month, and all of a sudden we're going, yeah, the 94, but now it's even higher. So I think we're just getting out of where I think we wanted to be, which was to show a reduction of the cost of the price for the last minute ice. I mean, we still want to entice people to take ice at the last minute. If we keep increasing the costs, they're not gonna wanna take it. We're trying to build up revenue, right? So to me, you just say it's $100 all in for last minute ice. I mean, to me, it's a no-brainer.
Councilor Tarnowski?
Is there an argument other than dollar value for not making it? Like I wouldn't agree with putting it $100 all in because people are used to paying tax. If you wanna make it so that the amount comes to $100, then we announce whatever the proper amount is. Cause if here it's all in, then all the other prices are, oh no, you have to add the tax, we should.
Well,
follow
yeah,
the
no,
same rate.
I did say that. I said staff in the actual user fee, or as they did it earlier, they'll adjust it to make it to $100. we're saying all in, but we can say it's $86
Okay, all right.
for the ice rental, but it comes out to 100. My second piece to that was, I want it to still be the $100 for next season. Because there's an increase in that surcharge apparently that is gonna bring it up more money. So,
The surcharge to help pay for future economics,
yes,
just to be clear what we're talking about.
right. And that goes up again next year. So now we have 1 month of last minute ice, and now we're all of a sudden gonna jump it up to another price, the higher price. So to me, it's, you know, let's say it's it's $86, or I'll say $85 for the ice rental, $6 for the surcharge, tax gets to $100. The next season, starting May 1st, then that price is $75 plus your $12 surcharge plus tax equals $100. And then if we want to revisit it for the following season to bring it to make any changes to it, to see how well, like you mentioned, we give it a year's test. Well, we're giving it a month test before we increase.
I would suggest in this case is, in the changes, you have the change for the 3rd of March. Just remove the 1st of May 2020,
For that one only.
okay? No, but if you take out of the bylaw, the $94 and $12, and you just keep the 3rd of March, that's in effect till the next time we change it. It'll be $100 till the next time we decide to change it.
I agree, but I think that staff's gonna have an issue with that because of that surcharge.
And we don't want.
They're only gonna charge the 6 and not the 12.
We don't want to decrease.
Monsieur Godin, if we're applying the
I'm
bylaws,
okay with
it
it.
states, the bylaw states that it's $100, that's what we charge. If we don't put in there that we're doubling the fee on that one item, it's not doubled, right?
That's right, so right now in the bylaw as it's presented, as of March 3rd, it's $100, and on May 1st it goes up. So if we remove that line that it says that on May 1st it goes up. it's
It
gonna
stays
stay
at $100.
And, well, right now it's plus taxes, but you want us to reduce it.
Yeah,
Further.
so
Yeah.
whatever the number is to get that number to 100. So in the bylaw, you'll put it, let's say it's 85 plus your 6 plus tax to get to the 100. I'll make that amendment right now.
Okay.
And to remove the,
Okay, so you're proposing to remove the 1st of May 2020 increase,
correct?
and for the 3rd of March, make it so the number is $100 tax in.
Tax in, surcharge in.
Okay, so you have a mover. Do we have a seconder for that amendment?
I have a question.
It has to be on the table if you have a question. Any seconders? So,
No, second.
Councilor Sosi seconds it, so now we have questions. Councilor Canasa?
I know you wouldn't take too long.
Okay, so Mr. Godin, I just need to understand, so in our pricing, the $12 is the surcharge, like it's going from 6 to 12 for the surcharge, correct? Am I understanding that correctly?
Yes.
That's correct.
So I do not want to reduce the surcharge to make this work. So either we reduce the cost of the ice rental last minute, but I still want that $12 every time the ice is rented to go to our reserve. So whatever that works, and I would say that people are used to paying tax. So if we put the price $100 plus tax, I think it's a good deal. I wouldn't want to go that below, like we're getting a really low.
So what,
So I will, can I make the amendment then?
so you're amending your amendment? No,
I'll adjust the
amendment, yeah, that's fine. If the mover and the seconder are willing to adjust.
To listen to what the adjustment would be.
Yeah,
Why don't we just make it effective right now with the $12 surcharge instead of the $6 surcharge, and still keep it at 100.
okay, so what you're suggesting then is the 94 and the 6 would go to 88 and 12. So it's $88 for the ice, $12 for the surcharge, but you want taxes in,
Correct.
and others don't want the taxes in. So we have to decide whether we want taxes in or we don't want taxes in. So if we go to 88 and 12, plus tax, I think it'll go by. I'm not sure if it'll go by, tax is incomplete. Councillor Sosi.
Okay, so my question is, to Madame Guittard, is this feasible? Is it, like, for you, the cost? Or are we just being, you know, I mean, we could throw any number out there.
I think realistically, Madame Guittard will go with whatever council decides, but at the end of the day, this all falls back whether we actually have staff available for those last minute ice time, which probably won't be happening quite that often.
Or should I be asking, to see a good,
Incremental revenue.
like, I'm talking about feasibility of financial.
So, I have a number.
For the number of times it's gonna happen in a year, I
Okay.
think it's up to council.
Okay.
That's a fair answer.
Okay, so Councillor Lorraine, would you like to adjust the amount?
So the actual amount, I just did the math, I think I did it right. I did in 76.50 plus the $12 surcharge plus the 13% tax comes to $100, .00005. So I think we're okay on the rounding. So your last minute ice rental upon availability, which may happen, 3-4 times a year, I guess, if that's what people's thinking is. I think it's gonna happen more. I think we're gonna be able to use ice that is not currently being used. It's at $76.50 plus the $12 surcharge plus the tax equals $100 flat. That's my amendment.
Okay, so do you agree with that amendment? You were the seconder?
I certainly do.
Okay. Question on the amendment, so we're talking 76.50 plus 12 plus tax.
I would agree. I just want to confirm one last thing. If I remember correctly, this is not in prime time. It's always not in prime time, right? Yeah, okay, then I will agree with it.
Madame Clerk?
I just have maybe a question for our Minister of Finance.
Been promoted again.
Yeah. Can we charge the $12 right now, or do we have to wait until May 1st? Was that in the budget bylaw or something? I
Monsieur
can't
Baudet?
remember, honestly.
If we amend the bylaw now, we can charge it now.
Yeah?
So we have a mover and a seconder, we'll call for the vote. All those in favor, 76.50. All those opposed? Carried. Okay, that's item I. Let's move on. Item J, which was the Integrity Commissioner. Need a mover and a seconder to put it on the table. Moved by Conseiller Brisson, seconded by Conseiller Lorraine. This is in regards to the block training. We decided to just ask for a PowerPoint presentation. Everybody was okay with that? And the second one was, what was the second one? The contract amendment, we're agreeing with the recommendation from staff.
For the second,
Pour les deux?
for the amendment.
Ah, faut qu'on l'amène numéro 1 pour spécifier, c'est ça? Okay, so I need a mover and a seconder to say we're taking the PowerPoint. Moved by Councilor Tonoski, seconded by Conseiller Levin. All those in favor of the amendment for number 1? For the PowerPoint? All those opposed? We're taking the PowerPoint. Number 2, we're okay with the recommendation from staff, unless there's questions or changes to that? You're okay with it?
No,
This isn't the item 12A, this is the
Okay.
resolution.
okay, all right.
Okay? Monsieur Leduc?
Just so we're clear, the Integrity Commissioner wants us to put his company name for whom he works for now instead of him personally. We don't think that's what we want for one thing, and I don't think that's also legal from the second angle. So we wish to have an individual, not a firm, being our Integrity Commissioner. That's why we're recommending council not to accept that, what he's suggesting. So I understand he's suggesting that we recognize his new address, his new company, that's fine. But we don't think the contract should be modified. So we can change his address on our files and stuff, but to change the contract to say the company name instead of John Saywell, we're not in agreement with that ourselves.
Okay, everybody's okay with that? Madame Camille
Mr. Mayor, just to add, in the meantime, I got the response from Mr. Saywell, and he was okay that if we want to leave only John Saywell as lawyer or John Saywell as his new cabinet, that's fine. with them,
So he's fine with
so
us
for that
staying
part,
the way it
yes,
was.
yes.
Okay.
That was one of the questions in my email, and that's what he replied, yes.
Okay, Councilor Lara?
And it's, as drafted, it says his name.
As a lawyer.
Okay, perfect. So everybody okay with that? So now we vote on the whole thing as amended. All those in favor? All those opposed? Carried. Now, the last one is K, the Accessibility Committee. Need a mover and a seconder. Moved by Conseiller Brisson, seconded by Councilor Chernowski. Changes, amendments? Conseiller Brisson?
Yeah, because the amendment is that the
So-
direct staff to come back with
With the report. So the direction is to come back with a report regarding potential changes to the tennis courts to make them more accessible, or to
make it
accessible. Monsieur Leduc?
Do you want us to go to the committee first or come to council first?
To council. No, that's my fault. Don't say that, eh?
parce que ça va être plus vite.
I'm fine with council as well, because the committee has asked us to do something, so, but in terms of that, in the report, can I just specify that when we get it back, we get the costing as well?
Yeah.
That'll be part of the report.
Okay, because I've seen reports come back at times where there was no costing, because the direction was just to look at it, so I wanna make sure.
Okay, perfect. So, Madame Vital?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of council. Maybe just a side note that this report might not be coming until spring, because we will want to see, like the big lip that we have there, to maybe give it a more accurate,
Yeah.
cost.
It's not at the next meeting, it's whenever the report is read. Okay, so, so we have that moved by the amendment moved by Conseiller Brisson, seconded by Conseiller Lorrain. All those in favor of that amendment? Carried. All those in favor as amended? Carried. Okay, we're done on that one. Now we're at item C, which is a motion that council approves all recommendations listed on the agenda under item 12, reports from investigator or the ombudsman. So I need a mover and a seconder to put that on the table. Moved by Councilor Janowski, seconded by Conseiller Brisson. And this is in regards to the council receives, for information purposes, the annual report for 2019 received on February 21st, 2020 from Mr. John Saywell, the Integrity Commissioner for the Township of Russell. So we have a mover and a seconder. Any questions, comments?
I make my comments.
Okay, all those in favor? All those opposed? Carried.
Recorded vote.
Recorded vote, yep. So, all those in favor again, show of hands. All those against? Carried. And we'll move on. Now we are at 16 bylaws. Item A, council remuneration bylaw. Motion that council approves bylaw 2020-014 for second and third reading as listed on the agenda. Need a mover and a seconder to put on the table. Moved by Councilor Tarnowski, seconded by Conseiller Brisson. T'avais-tu besoin d'un ajustement au wording, Madame Camille Laflamme?
We'll just, sorry, Mr. Mayor, we'll just put as it was directed in the resolution at
As there-
11A.
Okay, so instead of as listed on the agenda, we'll change as listed,
As amended
as amended in the
at
resolution.
11A, yep.
Okay. Conseiller Lorrain?
Is it on the table?
I need a mover and a second to put on the table. Moved by Conseiller Lorrain, seconded by Councilor Saucier. Questions?
I just have a procedural question on it. So, last time we voted in first reading for Councilor Taranowski's items, but we never voted in favor, we never did a first reading for the ones that I had suggested. Now we're doing 2 and 3. Procedurally, are we okay? Or do we have to do a first reading on the item, I guess it would be item 14, whatever, on the ones that I did? I just did want to make sure that we did it properly.
Yeah.
And if you're fine with it, I'm fine with it, but I just wanted to make sure, make that comment.
Madame Camille Laflamme?
I would say, Mr. Mayor, that we're fine because all the headings and everything had been already mentioned before. and they had been brought back, and they were in the agenda package. So it's up to council if they only wanna go in second reading, but we put it in second and third because everything that was discussed or added was on the
I
table.
think
I think I missed
Councillor Rein's point is that did we do a first reading for the items he had brought originally, is that correct?
Yeah.
Monsieur Leduc?
I still stand with the clerk. I think you read a bylaw, you make amendments, you bring a version that's amended, so now you're reading the second version, and you're reading a third version, so, that's why I think, the clerk is correct in saying you're just passing a version, so now it's been presented as part of the package, so you're fine.
Okay. Perfect.
I just wanted to make sure, because if I ever get asked, and I didn't ask the question, then
Okay, so we have it, we have a mover and a seconder put on the table. We have a mover and a seconder for the amendment.
Yes.
Okay, so I'll call all those in favor,
let's see amendments.
the amendments, veux-tu le relayer, Madame Camille?
It was just instead of, as listed on the agenda, it would read as amended at number 11A, resolution.
Okay.
Okay, so all those in favor of the amendment?
Can I make a comment first, before we do that?
Question, Monsieur
No,
Leduc?
it's a comment.
Comment, go ahead.
So, I know we've had many discussions on it, and there were stuff that both sides agreed and disagreed with, and I think we did that at the resolution stage. Therefore, for me, I'm gonna vote in favor of the bylaw in its entirety, because I think there were give and takes on either side. I think, we had a very healthy debate on it, and I think at the end of the day, we ended up resolving on something that was not acceptable for everybody, but acceptable for everybody, I think, if that makes sense. So
Thank
I'm
you.
gonna vote in favor of it, even though I know I voted against a couple of items in there, but I will vote in favor of the entire bylaw.
Thank you very much, Councillor Lorraine. So essentially, you decided not to take the football away and actually continue to play the game.
I'm not gonna pull the football away as you go to kick it, how's that? This one time.
All right, okay, so all those in favor of the amendment? Carried. All those in favor as amended? Carried. Move on to item B, which was the amendment to the user fee bylaw for Parks and Rec fees. Motion that council approves bylaw 2020-0022 inclusively for first, second, and third reading as listed on the agenda. We'll have to make this similar change. So we need a mover and a seconder. Moved by Conseiller Ternowski, seconded by Conseiller Brisson. Need the same wording for this amendment, that we go back to as in the resolution was passed. So I need a mover and a seconder on that amendment. Moved by Councillor Lorraine, seconded by Councillor Ternowski. All those in favor of the amendment? Carried. All those in favor of the bylaw as amended? Carried. Now we're at item C, amendment to committee appointments, Teen Advisory Committee. Motion that council approve bylaw
023 for the team?
Why you couldn't skip it, guys, aren't you? 23
Oh, 23, so.
for
Zero
first and
two.
second and third reading as follows. Oh, it's written there. 2023, being a bylaw to amend the committee's appointments bylaw 2019-002 to appoint persons and council representatives on various committees of council, to appoint members to the Team Advisory Committee. Mayor's suggestion as per section 6.4 of the committee bylaw. Need a mover and a seconder. Moved by Councillor Ternowski, seconded by Conseiller Brisson. Questions? Conseiller Lorraine.
I just had a quick question on it, did I miss a communication at all? Did you ask if there were members that wanted to be on that committee, or did you just?
I made my recommendation.
Okay.
Councillor Associate?
One question I had was about the Russell High School. Did they just not respond, or?
We've been in contact with them a few times. We're trying to get them to submit, but they haven't submitted names at this point unless that's changed, Madame Camille Lafont.
No, as of today, no answer yet that has been received.
So we didn't want to put the committee on hold until they send some names.
So could they still apply?
Yeah,
Like if
definitely. Once they pick who they'd like as their representatives, we would come back, add their names to the bylaw in a council meeting like we're doing now, and then we would just move forward. Okay, it's on the table. Councillor Ternowski?
I just want to recognize that I'm very happy to see both of these committees come to play.
Okay, thank you. All right, all those in favor? All those opposed? Carried. Item D, same thing, being a bylaw to amend the committee's appointment bylaw 2019-002 to appoint persons and council representatives on various committees of council to appoint members to the Seniors Advisory Committee. Mayor's suggestion as per 6.4 of the committee bylaws. I need a mover and seconder put on table, moved by Councilor Kanoski, seconded by Conseiller Brisson. This is similar. We had created the committee with, for 7 members of the public. Only 5 applied at this point in time. So we're leaving it open. If 2 members of the public would like to join the committee, they're more than welcome to forward their names, and we'll see where it goes if we have some more people that apply. So we have it on the table. Any questions? No? All those in favor? All those opposed? Carried. Item E, renovation project at Town Hall. Motion that council approves the proposed bylaw for first, second, and third reading as follows. 2020-25 being a bylaw to award the contract for the proposed renovation at Town Hall to Krista Construction Limited for $48,336. Report PD 23-2020. Need a mover and a seconder to put on the table. Moved by Conseiller Larin, seconded by Conseiller Brisson. Questions? All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. New business reports, we have none. Item 18A, Councilor Chernowski for Jonathan Pitt recognition.
So I just wanted, I was looking for an update on what's going on from our end. There was a school that was named after him in Ottawa, and I know we had talked about it, so I just wanted to get an update from the staff.
Okay, thank you very much, Councilor Chernowski. Monsieur Leduc, Madame Pittard, I know that at one point in time, we were trying to create an accessible park. We had some grant applications, and council had discussed the idea of naming that park after Jonathan Pitt. I don't believe we got the grant, Madame Pittard.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of council. No, unfortunately, this was through the accessibility funds, and unfortunately, we were denied the grant. So as soon as this opportunity comes back, we will definitely try again.
Monsieur Leduc, this is part of the strategic plan.
Yes, the plan calls for determining a project to be named Jonathan Pitt. So now we've got the park project on the table. We'll try again, but maybe council has other plans or other options instead of if they want to proceed earlier. So if it's naming a street, if it's naming a park, if it's doing something else, then we're waiting for council direction on it.
Okay. Councilor Sosi?
Yeah, my concern is, time is ticking, it's been almost 2 years since he passed, so, and I think with some of the newer streets could be named, but I know I'd also suggested was, and which would be a huge project, was, at the Dome having like a butterfly garden, and then putting even a sculpture of a butterfly in it and a little plaque with his name or something. And that would be not a huge undertaking to do something like that, like, it could be in the shape of a butterfly or something like that. So I really would encourage that we move forward and do something in his honor, because again, he was, I consider him our boy because he went to school in Alton, he lived in Russell, and I just would like to see something done.
Thank you. Conseiller Larin?
My thought has always been that, and I know it's not gonna be anytime soon, but we can always promote the fact if that's what council decides to do, but once we put a new rink up, maybe name it after him. We got one rink in Emblem that's not really named, it's Pettitison's or whatever. However, he never really had an affiliation with the Emblem Arena, more the Russell Arena. So to me, if we were to build a rink, another rink, if we're building 3, then we name one of them after him. I think if we commit to that project at some point in time, then we know that first name is already committed. Does it limit us in sponsorships? Maybe, I don't know how things are going these days, but that had always been my thought. With the one in Russell, I think there was there was thought, at least on my part, at one point in time, that it was the community center that was called the Dr. Frank Kennard Community Center, and it was just the hall that was named after Dr. Kennard. However, in doing some research, people way back, they have told me that no, when it was dedicated, it was the entire building as a whole, meaning the ice rink as well. So I don't wanna rename something else, and I think that's one of the issues that I think the family might have as well, is that how long does the name stay on the facility? So I wouldn't wanna take a name off to put a new name on, and I think that diminishes the reasons why we're doing it. But to me, he was so involved in sports, even though he couldn't play it, the kid lived and breathed hockey. And that's why I think we should name one of the arenas that we're gonna build in the complex. Or if that doesn't go on and we build another rink somewhere in this township, that rink is named after him. I think we need to make a commitment, and we can announce it, we can do whatever we need to do as part of the project. But I really think that that's the way it would go. I haven't spoken to the family. I know the parents, I know the daughter, or the sister, I guess it would be in that case as well, and I've never brought it up to them from that perspective. I did mention it to them at one point in time that I thought the Russell Arena would be a good idea to be named after them, but again, that came up as to not taking anything away from somebody. So that's my thought.
Just to be clear, I did have a conversation with Tina Boyle in regards to that. She's open to whatever the township is. I don't think it's a situation where the clock is ticking. There is no time limit to recognize somebody. We are moving forward. We're looking at accessible park. That hasn't happened. We can look at other options. But again, if we talk about another ice rink, potentially it's soon, maybe it's not so soon, but I think council, we can definitely have the discussion as to what's the potential projects that could move forward and what we're thinking about. I agree, I would be fine with an ice rink being named after Jonathan as well as part of the new complex. I think that'd be a fabulous idea, but I think that there has to be consideration of other projects as well. Conseiller Brisson?
One suggestion, maybe I don't know how much it would cost, even at the Dome, just as you arrive, if there was kind of a sculpture of a butterfly with the name of Jonathan, that will, comme ça va donner comme du landscape au Dôme, puis que quand que le monde va voir le papillon, ça va dire, OK, moi je trouve encore ça plus relevant, le papillon, que même en Ice Rink ou quoi que ce soit, qu'il y aura le papillon à la mémoire de Jonathan. Je ne sais pas quel prix, mais...
Councillor Tarnowski?
I love both ideas. I'm a little bit kind of, the timeline with the arena. I understand what you're saying, that the value is still the value, but maybe a perfect mix would be to go with a small statue of a butterfly to recognize him, and then when we get to that stage where we have a bit of room, and we can bring that statue and actually, name the arena or something like that. Because then we can right away have that.
Councillor Petter?
Because, and I agree, the arena is years away, hopefully not too many years away. What would it cost to have something put up at each end of the township that says home of Jonathan Pitt? Like,
Similar to, like when you go to North Dundas, birthplace of Madame Boucher,
like, why can't we do something like that? Like, wouldn't that be a good recognition?
I want to check with you.
Monsieur Leduc?
Well, in all fairness to all residents of the township, there are more people, and there are other names are maybe more prominent or maybe more popular out there right now. There's been proposals for building sky signs, all these things out there. So if you're going to go that way, I think there should be a call for names. There could be but then we have a naming policy we have to go through. There's a few things we need to go through than just go emotionally on one item. I think if you're going there with signs, I think you're going to have to consider other names if that's where you wanna go, but that's my position.
My only comment with the one that was mentioned, is, it was brought to council, we did put the money aside, and nothing happened. So, we were going there, and unfortunately, nothing else came of it. I don't know if you have an update on that, but, you know.
Mr. Leduc?
I think if it's a community pride thing, it should not be for us to wait for someone to make a proposal. I think it should be for us to come out and take the same issue, spend the money if we feel it's a prominent resident that should be recognized, and maybe more than one person. So my personal position on this is that we should be doing the same thing for everybody for consideration.
Councilor Associate?
Well, I was just thinking, you know, the Kin Club is doing all this fundraising right now to put the new signs for Russell, welcome to Russell, and maybe that might be something they consider is having the, home of Jonathan Pitt on the bottom of the sign. You know, cause, I mean, I don't, you know, I sort of feel like, well, we're not gonna recognize him because other people need recognizing. Well, there's always gonna be people that need recognizing. And there'll be more coming up that we'll probably consider at some other point. But I just really feel like he, for one, you know, he did so much for this community, and awareness about his deed that, it's really important that we do honor him.
I think the direction we were going in was an accessible park.
Yeah, I
That's
remember that,
right.
yeah.
So there's nothing stopping council from still, we didn't get the grant, but at budget time, we can definitely make that a priority if that's still the route we wanna take. Realistically, at this point in time, I don't think we have anything budgeted for this, for any project for Jonathan Pitt. I don't think we just wanna do something because a school did it and we wanna be, you know, we wanna jump on the bandwagon and get it done right away. I don't think that's the attitude we wanna take. We wanna choose something that we truly feel will be appropriate. Now, council can have that discussion and what do we choose, and then we can decide, you know, we can involve the community, Kin Club, other clubs who wanna participate and do some fundraising. If we wanna be this year, then like reach out to community groups, see if they're interested in doing some fundraising, and then next year's budget, we can plan for that. But that's what the budget session is for.
I did bring it up, the budget.
Okay, but just throwing an idea out at budget, if you really want something to happen, then you have to put it on the table and have that discussion. You have to, or bring a notice of motion. That's the tools council has. So if this is something that we strongly feel that we wanna get done, then we choose when to do it and we choose what the project is. But I think we should have a further discussion on this. I would suggest that we write down a few ideas, we bring this back in a month's time, and we have a discussion saying, this is what I propose. If a member of council wants something absolutely and doesn't wanna have that discussion, then put it on the table so we can vote on it and decide whether we're going that route or not. But just throwing an idea out during budget session and not saying, well, I'd like to increase taxes to pay for it, or I'd like to cut somewhere else to pay for it, that's just wishful thinking. Conseiller Brisson?
I think it's good that it need a better discussion, I would say, because we have to look at the pros and cons. Because as we were saying, home of, there's some other that have passed before, there's some that will be. Then, as we're saying, maybe it's the sculpture to see how much it is, but that's why we need the pros and cons and the pricing on it. So I think it's another discussion that we should, but that it should be put forward
Put it on the agenda.
on the agenda, that we come back with some, maybe it would be maybe at the next meeting or in 2 meetings, that we have some point that we think is more for it. Because one thing that we have to remember too, like on the negative side, if we put a name like on the arena, it's just that often the arena are with the sponsor, then we cannot do it. But that's why I'm saying you have to have a list of pros and cons and bring the idea and how much it costs.
I think so the other option is that we have prices associated with the park that we're going for a grant. You know, we can reach out to the public and say, look, we wanted to do this in Jonathan Petrie's name. Funding did not come through. We reach out to the public and see, are they interested in supporting this project? Because I think that they would be, you know, you put Jonathan's name out there, they will step up. You know, and it might be, you know, we're matching funds or whatever the case is. But I think we should have a discussion. We need staff's thoughts on the possibilities as well, you know? And when Jonathan passed away, there was a lot of people that gave feedback as to what they would like to have a folder full on the computer of ideas, street names, parks, you know, there was so many different ideas. So I think I would suggest that if you have an idea or something you'd like to bring forward, then at the next meeting, we can have a line item. We can, I would send your ideas so that they're part of the our report. Members of council can have an idea of what is going to be a topic of discussion ahead of time, and then we can really see where this discussion wants. But I think that it's worthwhile involving the public if we decide to go with the park. Councillor Janoski, Conseiller Lorrain.
I'm happy to go that way. I just wanted an update that if you can share your folder then, if there are some great ideas, I would like to see those to come
Yeah,
up with.
it was a lot of, I definitely share some of the thoughts on that. It was a lot of name the dome, name a street, name a park, you know, if it wasn't necessarily infrastructure projects, which I think that's more where the council would like to go. Like, I understand Councillor Lorrain wants to name an arena, but I think it's worthwhile if we're doing a new arena to name it after Jonathan. You know, I don't necessarily want a 40, 50-year-old arena to be named after Jonathan. My thoughts
Which is
on
fine.
it.
No, and that's
Yeah.
what I'm suggesting.
Yeah, so, but, you know, whether we go with an infrastructure project or whether we go with the naming of a facility, we can throw that on the table, have that discussion further. Conseiller Lorrain?
My only, I guess, request on that is, it's great that we have the discussion here and whether we're involving the public or community groups or whatnot. But I really think that before we can, at this table, make a decision as to what we're gonna do, whether it's an arena, whether it's a park, whether it's a structure, is that the family's involved as well. So I think before we put anything on the table here, there has to be, and I hope it's not gonna be all five of us reaching out to Tina or Andre or whatnot, just the mother and father, to see. It should be one point of contact, and maybe it's Monsieur Leduc that reaches out, administration or somebody reaches out to say, this is coming to council on Monday night, just to let you know the discussion that we're having is on naming something after Jonathan. Here are the options. Do you have any issues with any of these options that are being presented here, or is there something that you absolutely wouldn't want in case it's discussed at council? I can bring that back to council. I definitely think that they need to be involved in the process and not after the fact. I think we should have that information here, and I would hate to have all of us ringing their phones. So I think that we give some sort of direction that way. If a member does want to bring something to the table, that somebody contacts the family.
Yep. So, Monsieur Leduc, for clarification, you would need the report comes to council the Wednesday before the meeting, but staff have to hand in their reports to you the week previous to that,
This Thursday.
this Thursday. So we've got 3 days,
At noon.
get your thinking caps
At
on.
noon. At noon.
We'll throw, send your ideas to Monsieur Leduc. Monsieur Leduc can compile our ideas. T'es-tu confortable, Monsieur Leduc, à contacter Madame Boileau? I can reach out as well.
Personally, I think it's political. That's what I think.
Yeah.
Yourself or a member of council should be designated to discuss that. I'm happy to do so, but certainly I think that's your role there to, it's one of the privileged roles you have as council members, and I think it should be delegated to somebody like that.
Thank you, Monsieur Leduc. Like I mentioned, I've had discussions with Madame Boileau in the past. I'm more than happy to sit down with her again, or have a conversation again with her. Conseiller Tarnowski?
Well, so, do you need ideas from us before, or do you have enough ideas to just kind of get a feel for what she
I think-
would be happy with?
Well, I think really it is members of council decide what they would like to see. You know, you can throw 20 ideas out there, but at the end of the day, if there's a project specifically you wanna see done in his honor, submit that to Mr. Leduc, that way it can be part of the report, and we can, you know, and then we can have the discussion and decide, do we wanna go that route?
I'll submit it now to Monsieur Leduc if that's the case, and to me, it's one of the rinks in the new complex. That's what I think should be dedicated to him. That's my opinion.
Conseiller
Si
Bisson?
on donne les opinions comme c'est là, moi, ça serait la structure d'un papillon que vraiment pour identifier Jonathan de son client.
Right? Councillor Donosky?
Going that way, I would go with something around the butterfly, for now, and then eventually, when we get to that stage, to bring that statue there and then make it permanent.
Okay.
Well, I'm good with these recommendations, but I will submit some to Monsieur Leduc via email
Okay, so submit ideas.
before Thursday.
Yep. For my part, I'm fine with a statue of some sort that could be placed at the arena down the road. I think that would work out well as well. So maybe if staff have an opportunity to research, we can do it on our end as well, but as far as, I don't know who builds statues, but I'm sure there's somebody that could design something.
There is Mr. Jackson local that did the plaques for us. You could probably do something, you know, like, and again, you could have it where you're gonna have the arena. Even a plaque ahead of time
Mr. Leduc?
in the shape of a butterfly or something, and
To me, it sounds all good, but what's the budget? Because
I think,
I can give you an idea of 5,000 or 50,000 or 500,000, depending who comes in, who contributes, whoever. So to me, naming a building, putting letters on the building is very cheap.
yeah.
But if you're putting a sculpture, well, they can be 10,000, 50,000, 20,000, depending on how creative you make when you make a sculpture. So what's the budget? Are we still pursuing the park, accessibility park project or not?
I think the park has to be part of the report and the costs associated to the park. And then members of council, you've heard a naming, we know that's not expensive, a statue, what's the potential cost of a statue generally? And then we'll be able to have that discussion and see where we wanna go. Conseiller Laurent?
That's, since we're talking about that, then I think that we also have to include the cost of, on ice, the arena. And I don't know what the cost is for that, but there's a stencil that would go on, what's that, $500-600 or whatever, to create a stencil on either side of the rink, or whatever that is, or at center ice, or
At that time.
at that time. It won't be now, but as part of of a budget to put the name on and whatever, make sure you take into account that I would want it on the ice as well, so people see it.
Mr. Leduc?
You mentioned also a few times the next meeting, but I have other priorities for the next meeting. I don't know if this is more priority than the business planning or strategic plan, but to me, we had other priorities in the next week. So if it's that urgent, I'll do it. If it's
I
not-
don't think there's an urgency personally. I think this is something to be worked on. I understand that, you know, there was the school that recognized Jonathan Pitt, and why didn't we do anything yet? And, you know, maybe some people are feeling that way, but we did have a plan, we didn't get the funding yet. Once, you know, in budget time, that's where we decide where the money is spent. So, I'm fine with a report coming at a later point in time, obviously before budget, so that we could have discussions at budget to make sure it's in the 2021 budget. But unless members of council say they want something ASAP,
The spring. Starts March 19th.
There's meetings up to
Councillor Associate?
well, maybe we could find out when his birthday is or something, and we could, you know, focus around a date or something.
For the recognition, you mean?
Yeah.
So are you?
For the decision on, for the discussion.
Right.
No, I'm thinking like we said in the spring, that if they're, like, say we decided on a plaque or something, and we figure out the cost, and then, And then we might be able to do something at a specific date, you know.
I think so.
Whenever they're
I-
ready.
I'm suggesting that whenever you're ready, Mr. Lidzik, this will, keep in mind, this will be part of the discussion at budget time coming up. We'd like to see some concrete options by that time, or at least an idea to be ready at that time. So if we have to have the discussion in June, so that at September, this is part of the discussion, October, that's fine. But I don't wanna rush this thing. I wanna make sure we get it right. Is everybody okay for that? Yeah. Correct, Mr. Lidzik? Okay. Item 18B, Councillor Brisson for the blood clinic.
Just a reminder that the blood clinic will be in Emblem, March 4th, with new hours. It's from 2 in the afternoon till 6.
Okay, so this Wednesday.
Yeah.
Okay. Parfait, merci beaucoup. Item C, Councillor Saucy, Irish tea.
Well, we're very happy that the museum is open and we're hosting a number of tours at the museum. We had Russell High School, and now next week we're having the Boy Scouts coming through. I just want to remind everyone that I was the designate counselor in the last term at the Historical Society, and so attending all the meetings, I got very interested in the museum, and I'm not on the board, but I am now a member of the Keith Boyd Museum. So everyone is invited to an Irish tea party at the museum on Sunday, March 15th from 2 to 4. And the entertainment is by the Gallagher family, and they'll be performing a lot of Irish tunes and if you like Celtic or Irish music. And it's a free event, so it's fun for the whole family.
Just for clarification, I don't think I've been to an Irish tea party. Do they need a liquor license?
No.
Okay. So it's not that kind of Irish tea?
Green tea.
Green
Tea and
Oh, just green tea,
biscuits.
gotcha. All right, fair enough. Thank you very much. Item D, Councillor Saucy for the clotting.
Okay, so as everybody's aware, we did receive a letter, but in response, that I had heard that we had voted as a council on putting vinyl cladding on the museum, and I don't ever recall doing that. I actually watched back the budget meetings, and, what I saw was that it was recommended looking at other funding, and that we had only received one bid, one tender, and that, could we look at other bids or other, so to see if the price was so high on that one bid. And that was, when I reviewed it, that's what I was,
So to clarify,
clearing on.
the budgeted amount which council approved was for the, not the wood cladding, it was vinyl. That's what was approved, the amount was approved in the budget, was the amount worth of the vinyl siding. Is that correct, Monsieur Leduc, Madame Thor?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of council. We still had a small shortfall, even though we were doing it with Cancel.
Yeah.
So for 2020, we had $61,000 put in the budget, plus the remaining of the leftover from the ramp that was transferred to 2020. So
Right.
we have currently $88,000.
Which is enough for the vinyl, or?
Which is, we're still short about of $7,000.
Right, but the wood option is much higher.
It is much higher.
It's much higher. So the direction of council at budget was that we put enough money for the vinyl, we did not put enough money for the wood. We gave the opportunity, if there was grants that were applied for, if they were to come in, or if there was fundraising or sources of revenue from other areas that would come in, then we could put that towards the side. Madame Guitar?
Yeah, and if I can just add, we had discussed at the same time other sources of funding. One that was mentioned was Police Village. And I can't recall who, was it, I think it's Councillor Saucy that sits on that committee, and she had mentioned
I don't sit
it.
on it anymore, I did in the last
Oh,
term.
okay.
And
So-
I said it would be something that would be eligible because it is in the police village, whether they'd approve it or not.
That's
is-
another-
Is a.
But it's like every other request, whether it's not approved or approved, but it was a possibility, Police Village, and then we had talked about a trivia night. I think there was a fundraising done, it was not the, usual trivia night, it was the
Down East Party.
the Down East Party. So there was a little bit of money collected there too. And of course, there was the grant application, if it becomes available.
Yeah.
So
And the
that's,
Down East Party is being held again
Yes.
this year, and it's also going
Yeah.
to the museum, so, I mean, they are making the effort to try and raise some funds for the
and
museum.
council had given me the direction to come back at the end of April with a report, confirming where we were with all the funds, for the museum.
The end of April this year.
At the end of April this year, that's right.
And just to be clear, during the budget session, there was the opportunity to increase those funds to do the wood cladding. You know, there was money from the Limoges account that was put on the table, and, you know, I suggested, can we put this towards the museum? But council decided to go with, garbage and recycling in Marionville containers, extra lights, Christmas lights. So that conversation happened at budget time. The opportunity was there to take that money from the Limoges pot and put it on the cladding, and council did not wish to go there. So, I mean, there was opportunities to tweak the budget to have more funds added to that pot. But no member of council made that suggestion.
Well, it wasn't worded that way, because I said, I just watched it back this afternoon, there was nowhere with, oh, if we don't put the money here, this can go on the cladding. I think it was a little misleading,
Well, it's not
perhaps.
misleading. When we have a discussion, Councillor Associate, and we find out that the pot from the Limoges, I call it the Limoges, but it's a line item. There was funds in that area, and we determined that can be put anywhere else. If a council member wants it put somewhere, they have to make the argument for it. They have to say, you know what, those funds I would like to see go here. And I even opened the door for a council member to be able to make that suggestion, and nobody made that suggestion.
Well, watch it back, I did make the suggestion numerous times.
Yes, but making the suggestion you want to put more money there and not deciding whether you want to take it from elsewhere or you want to raise taxes to cover that, that's what we're here for, to make the tough calls. So, you know, it's not rocket science. Either you have a line item, you want that specific item to go ahead, you have to choose where you're willing to cut or if you're willing to increase it elsewhere to pay for that. That's how the budget works. Conseiller Brisson, Conseiller Lorraine.
Well, I want to know, I know that, as I recall the last discussion about that cost, that we were saying that we were putting that money for it's not vinyl, it's,
That's fine. Mechanics.
Canex.
And so,
Yeah, and it was mentioned that if they were, that we would let the, the group,
Historical
the
Society.
Historical Society, that if they do the funding to find some other, my question is, does the historical committee have been advised of this?
Okay, so just to be clear, the Historical Society was not asked to go do fundraising. We said if somebody wants to do fundraising and raise the funds, then they're more willing, you know, we'll look at that. But it was never an ask of the Historical Society to go do it. Council said, we're putting enough money to do the vinyl siding. If an organization decides they don't want the vinyl siding, then they have to make a decision whether they want to be involved in the process and raise some funds to help do it.
Moi, je l'avais vu différemment un peu. Je pensais que c'était, comme de toute façon, ça avait été dit, que là, c'était eux autres. Il fallait qu'ils aillent voir le Police Village, puis s'ils décidaient d'aller voir pour faire un trivia night, tout ça.
Well,
Moi, c'est le même que j'avais vu.
if they choose to do so, but it wasn't a requirement of council to obligate them to do it. That's not our place at all. Monsieur Leduc?
Just Mr. Mayor, staff understood that direction to be also ourselves, and we did spend a lot of time last week writing a request for funding. So we're part of the groups that are looking for additional funding, but it can't be all only ourselves. If we have nothing from the province, then we're stuck with only one party looking for money, which is something or nothing.
Just to be clear, this is, I believe, our fourth application for this project, Madame Vital?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, exactly. This is the fourth time we tried.
Since 2016, we've been applying
16, 17, 19, and 20. Out of the 4, we got 1.
for the RAP.
Yep.
Conseiller Laurent?
I guess my question is, when we mentioned all these other funding mechanisms, we mentioned the police village. Did we say who should be putting that application in, whether it's the township or whether we should speak to the historical society and have them put the request in because it's not their building? So I'm just trying to see who's doing it and who should be doing it to request the funds. And if it's us that should be doing it, then maybe we have to give direction to staff to do it. And if not, then we give direction to speak to the Historical Society to suggest to them that they do it.
I think
don't know where we landed on that.
I think we, for staff perspective, I think we were waiting to see the outcome of the grant applications. We have another grant application in play. I think historically, when it comes to municipal infrastructure, the police village has said in the past, they don't want to contribute to what they feel should be taxation paying for. We've had those discussions numerous times. But I would expect staff that once they've exhausted all possible resources, if they have to go to the police village, then that would be the next step. Conseiller Laurent?
Do we know how often they meet?
The police village?
Yeah.
Once a month.
So if the report's coming to us at the end of April, then that would leave basically the month of March's meeting, if they haven't had it already, to have somebody put a request in, right? So I think somebody needs to move this month on it, if we're gonna get a full report back on in April. So, again, I don't know who we're asking to do it. Are we asking the Historical Society if they want the wood cladding to submit the application, or are we asking staff to fill in an application for the police village?
Monsieur Leduc?
Well, I think we can do that, but the situation between the police village and ourselves regarding our projects. So we can really fill it out. It's only a form, it's not too complicated to fill out. But we can try.
Councillor Associate?
Yeah, I'm just also curious of, what we're missing in our application, when we are applying for the funds, like, are they realizing how old the building is and the historical value of it? And if, like, I'm not questioning, what you're doing. I mean, I know you know how to do applications, but, they're refusing on the basis of something.
Yes.
So,
Yes.
they,
And
and it is, I mean, it's not crowds all the time, but there's like 500 people going through in a year, so I mean, it's still utilized by the community.
So, we've had this discussion at council before, and Madame Vital has informed council before. Is essentially, it's the lack of traffic that is making the difference. The ministry wants to see a return on their investment. And when they see the traffic flow that's coming through you, they don't think that's significant enough to invest those funds.
So what kind of traffic are they looking for, like, what are the numbers?
Madame Vital?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of council. Unfortunately, they're looking for a more important impact. The first one, that was back in 2016, that was the first comment that I had from the Ontario Trillium Foundation. And every time that I get a denial on a grant, I call back, because I want to find out, what did I do wrong? Did I do something wrong? Because there's a lot of points sometimes given for a certain specific area, a specific description or whatever. So I want to find out. And Trillium, that's what they told me. The last one for cultural spaces with Canadian Heritage, they told me the same thing. For us, 600 people, let's say a year, is a lot. For them, it's nothing, unfortunately. So this time with red application, I've asked for a lot less money than I've asked previously. So they might look into it more positively, since we're contributing, the very larger chunk of money needed to do the planning, so hopefully. But again, there's a section there for economic development. For them, they're asking me, how many jobs are you gonna create? And I do stress the fact that it's a heritage building. I tell them the story of when the museum was built, the founder, the whole story is there, every time. So.
But it's hard because it's run by volunteers.
That's right, and I do stress that too. And I've even asked Mr. Baker to fill out a form as a co-applicant, because that gives us more points when we have a partner in the project. So I did all that for Red, and I've done it before with Trillium. So.
I think the other thing that we will find out once the job starts is what's underneath that cladding. Are we opening up a wall to find out that there is so much more work? And we'll only find that out once the work begins.
Unfortunately.
So, even though we're talking about $80,000 and $30,000 more for the wood cladding, it might go up significantly once this is actually going into play. Yeah, when you renovate a house, you find out an old house right away once you open up that wall. So I think, we've had a great relationship with Historical Society over the last few years, and, when we have emails that are essentially attacking our staff and council, I think that's very unproductive. I think that we should be working together, and that's why my response letter indicated as such. So I'm hoping that a grant comes in, most definitely. Historically, maybe it's a smaller amount, maybe we'll be lucky this time around, but we have to be realistic. And as I said before, Councillor Saucier, if you want funds to go to a certain project, just state whether you're willing to increase taxation or you're willing to cut somewhere else in the budget, and then you can bring that to the council table and council can have that discussion and decide if we're in agreement or not. That's the last item. For 18, move on to item 19, public consultations, we have none. Item 20, closed session, we have none. 21, confirming bylaw. That bylaw
026.
2020-026 being a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of the Council of the Corporation of Township of Russell at its regular council meeting held on March 2nd, 2020. Be read a first, second, and third time and passed. Need a mover and a seconder. Moved by Councillor Tomowski, seconded by Councillor Brisson. All those in favor? All those opposed? Carried. Next regular public meeting of council will be on Monday, March 16th, 2020. We are adjourned at 9:23 p.m. Thank you very much, everyone.